Stephen's the only one missing. I'd say we stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. And move on. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're ready. With your indulgences, I will pass out a list A through M, from my notes at least, from the last sessions we had, of items. We're going to jump directly to item D. Cheryl has a guest speaker with us to help with item D. And while you're doing that, I should say that there was President's remarks, and my President's remarks will be the same. Please remember to be civil. Do not interrupt other speakers when they're talking. Nobody call anybody names, but they came close. So let's not have that. Let's have civility. Make sure that what we say is grounded in what we believe in and not what somebody else has told you. Thank you very much. I'll never reheard that.
Okay. I received a call from Reggie Mason, our Boston County Sheriff, asking me, speaking to me about the proposed budget item to add one additional police officer for the Ocean Pines Police Force, specifically to be a part of the CET group called the task force. And I expressed to Mr. Mason what the concerns were of some of the board members, and he said, well, can we come and talk about it? I said, sure, anybody can do that. So originally I thought it was going to be Nate Passwater, who is, I believe, a current member of CET. At least he was CBI or CBI, I forget. But because he had another commitment, in his place today is Sheriff Mike Lewis, McDermott, excuse me. Mike Lewis is in my company. Mike McDermott. So Mike.
Mike.
Jack? Senator? Yeah, thanks. Is this one okay here?
Yeah, that's okay. Should be okay.
Terrific. I know I never have needed a microphone. But for the record,
I try not to be shy.
I'm Michael McDermott. I'm a lieutenant with the Worcester County Sheriff's Office, and I'm here on behalf of Sheriff Mason and at the request of the board member Jacobs to basically convey to you and try and help you. Maybe if you're on the fence, if you've decided that perhaps adding personnel to the police department for the purpose of participating in the criminal enforcement team, that's what CET stands for. My relationship to that is I'm the division commander for all of our investigative services. So the criminal enforcement team and Detective Sergeant Passwaters, they fall under my command, as well as the County Bureau of Investigation, which handles all of our criminal work in the county. All the criminal detectives, they fall under my command as well. I've been a member of our investigative staff now for, the last 27 years of my career, and this is my 33rd year serving folks. So let me encourage you in this regard. The Sheriff's Office and the Criminal Enforcement Team have been probably one of the most productive assets that you have working that you don't really know that much about. We used to call them the Narcotics Task Force, associated with a joint combined task force where you had agents from all of the participating agencies, including the state of Maryland, who got together and decided that more was better, that we could do more if we worked together. And traditionally in government, that's usually a good common sense response in dealing with problems. If you can combine your assets and your resources with those of others that have the same mission, the same goal, the same desires, in an area where there are no boundaries. Drug dealers do not respect boundaries. Criminals do not respect boundaries. Ocean Pines, the structure of Ocean Pines and the association of property means very little to somebody who's involved in narcotic trafficking. They don't care. They don't care where their next victims are, and they don't care where they buy, sell, and do their business. They just don't want to get caught. So this helps us all when we all recognize that these borders are only relevant to political jurisdictions. They don't mean anything in criminal justice, except where our authority lies and where the next guy's authority begins. By combining those resources together years ago, and I'm talking about, we began combining resources in this county historically back in the mid-'80s. You had the beginning of the Narcotics Task Force was part of the state's efforts back in 1985. All the counties formed these Narcotics Task Force. All the sheriffs participated, the state police participated. Everybody put people in, and they were generally run by the state police back then. They funded a lot of the buy money because you need operational money in order to conduct drug purchases and conduct your operations. They usually needed covert places where they would set these office spaces up so they could use phone lines back then. We didn't have cell phones like we do now. There was a lot of covert activity that needed to be funded. And the state of Maryland did a lot of that. What happened with us in recent years, the state, other agencies, with all the advent and with the different organizations and budget issues with the state and failures, if you will, sometimes in management, some different task forces, different superintendents coming in, having a different flavor of the day. It's one of the biggest problems with state government is the fact that a lot of the cabinet members, like the Secretary of the State Police, whenever the governorship changes, you often get changes in these cabinet positions. And when those change, you get somebody that might come in that doesn't particularly like to do things the same way the last guy did. That's always been a problem in Maryland. And that was we're not shy about looking at it and realizing that was a problem. The last time we had a task force in here was, back in the early 2000s, and it wasn't working. It was flawed. The leadership was flawed. The sheriff had taken office, and when Sheriff Mason took office, about 5 years ago, one of his first issues was to continue working with this criminal enforcement team, which became the answer to Worcester County's Narcotics Task Force. It was so successful being run by the sheriff's office and being handled administratively through my division and out of this office that even the state police and the other allied agencies that used to belong to the normal task force joined us and became a part, submitted to the leadership, which was unilateral through the sheriff's office. And that process has really worked well. It's oftentimes, as you know, personality driven when it comes to who's in charge. But we have a really good team, and they've been working very well for you and on your behalf in this county. The criminal enforcement team right now consists of roughly 9 detectives. The detective sergeant and a sergeant from the Maryland State Police are basically the heads, if you will, of the unit. Sergeant Passwaters is the head for the sheriff's office. As an assistant to him, the state police has put their own sergeant in there to help out. The state police has 2 other assets in there. The sheriff's office has 2 other assets in there. We have assets from Homeland Security. We have assets from the sheriff's office has administrative staff in there, civilian staff providing those type of clerical services. And Ocean City has resources in there. They have 1. They're putting another in this year. And you might ask yourself, well, why does, like Ocean City is a good example, why does Ocean City contribute to something that's out in the county? And it's because the chief and the mayor and council understand that there is a nexus in Ocean City for drug work that goes in and out, that doesn't recognize these borders. And if you're going to do effective drug work out of Ocean City, you've got to have an ability to reach out into the county and have an understanding. Now, they still have narcotics task in their own division. They've got their own people that handle stuff on the island. But they've also got people in the CET because there's always a crossover, and that intelligence sharing of that data is critical to conduct proper investigations in this county and in this region. A lot of our members are also task force oriented towards they've got cross designation with the federal government. So they're federal agents. A lot of that comes down to when you start conducting investigations. As you might well think, a lot of our stuff winds up in Delaware, lower Delaware. A lot of stuff might wind up in Virginia. A A lot of stuff goes Western Shore. We have tracked and conducted investigations all up and down the East Coast and even out to California. We have drugs that impact this community that come from all over the United States, and they wind up in Worcester County. Sometimes they're further designated for distribution outside of our area. Sometimes they're designated for distribution right here in our county. As of late, and what's probably brought this to the forefront, there are a lot of reasons why I think, from a legitimate standpoint of government, that the association should consider why they need to be a part of the criminal enforcement team specifically. I could stand here and make the case for you to be a part of both of these units easily because of the criminal work that gets done by investigators in both of those varieties. I've been asked to come here and address the CET issue. But let me tell you what happens for, like, say, Pocomoke City that has a member as a part, or Ocean City. Whenever there's something that happens in that community, like in Ocean Pines, now you could create your own narcotics detective, and you could have them working in Ocean Pines on Ocean Pines cases, and they could be successful doing Ocean Pines casework. But the nexus, the generation of what goes beyond Ocean Pines is significant. And if you're really going to stop some of the trafficking and you're going to have an impact on it wholesale, you've got to get the bigger fish. That requires an investment because these investigations often require quite a bit of capital. And I don't know that you have the deep pocket to go into those kind of investigations. You cannot access the federal funding that we access. When you talk about doing wiretap investigations, where we go up on a wire, and our facilities are rigged for that. We have investigators that are specifically trained in this. We go up on a wire, we've got to keep that wire hot for 24/7 until we're finished gathering that intel. And that's a lot of money required to put this thing up and fund it and keep it going. Well, because we have shared funding with the federal government, we go back to the feds and say, we've got this case. It involves drug trafficking. It might have a nexus in Delaware or Virginia. It's coming to us out of Baltimore City, and it's impacting our area. We want you to help fund this wire. And the feds come in and say, we will fund that wire, which means we'll pay the overtime, the salaries of the police officers that are engaged in it, and the reasonable expectation that we have to continue that wire so that they can participate in the forfeiture sharing. The idea behind shutting these people down, you hurt drug dealers by locking them up. You also hurt their organization by stripping them of their wealth. Taking away the assets that they've acquired illegally and fraudulently through their own illegal ways and taking those back as seized assets and forfeited assets. You should not do this because you're going to benefit from it financially, okay? I'm telling you that right now. Don't do it because it looks like a bottom line plus for your budget. If I told you that, we gave Ocean City a check this past year for roughly $90,000, that covered basically 3 years' worth of their participation in the narcotics task force. We couldn't give them any money until they had signed the documents and become part of the MOU that we would present to Ocean Pines as well. But they get a percentage based upon the forfeiture of money that comes in from all of these collective works. Not just what happens in Ocean City, not just what has a nexus to Ocean City, but what happens in this county. If we were to seize, as we have seized hundreds of thousands of dollars in this county on given cases that have absolutely no nexus to Ocean Pines, none to Ocean City. They still collect. They still participate. Money comes back to them through that forfeiture program. The least amount of money that we have forfeited since 2011 is $102,000 in the year. That was a low year. That was 2013. It averages out to be around $200,000 a year. This past year, 2015, was $740,000 of assets that we have gone out. Now, what does it mean when you go out and seize property? You seize a drug house. You seize vehicles. You seize cash. You seize computers. We take all of that, crunch it down. When it's forfeited over to us at the county level, we auction things off, we get rid of them, and we take that money and we convert it into more investigations and more power against drug dealers. In this case of Ocean Pines was a member. They would collect roughly 10% of proceeds that came available that year. We take 30% of the funded money that comes back to us through forfeit, and put it right back into the operation. The sheriff's office, the sheriff, as well as the state police, take their percentage of the proceeds and put it right back into the operation to fund it. So it's really some of the allied agencies that would draw from it. Ocean City's a draw. If Ocean Pines participated, I'm sure you would consider being a draw on that to try and recover some of the money that you put forward funding that position. It's not going to necessarily fund your entire position for that police officer. But what we will do at the CET, and the sheriff will ensure you that we'll provide the vehicle that they operate with, we'll provide the necessary radios and equipment, anything that that detective needs to do their job, we will provide. We have desk space for them. We have the computers for them. We have a place set up and a module there ready to go tomorrow if Ocean Pines says we want to be a part. By being a part, think about this. It's an exponential multiplier for you. You take one detective and you seed that into a program that immediately gives you 11 people working for you in narcotics investigations. That's huge. You can say, well, Lieutenant, don't we already have that now? Because, we're in Ocean Pines and you come and help us out now. Yes, you know what, we do help you out now. But we have limited resources to be able to come in here and impact this community. We're right now responding and we're playing on the defense with a lot of the stuff that we do. Ocean Pines has it's the top spot in the county just because of population alone. Okay? It's the top place in the county where we deal with heroin overdoses. We've dealt with 15 in the last year. And 3 of those were fatal out of Ocean Pines. When we're dealing with heroin like we are right now in our communities, it's a big, big burden on any law enforcement community. So you can imagine the impact that it has on your community. There's not anybody in this room that does not know somebody in a family that was not impacted by somebody that's hooked on heroin. It's rampant. It is not just going to go away because we sit back and do nothing. And I'm telling you, our ability to intercept and interrupt that kind of drug trafficking in our community is huge. Not only is it important as a public safety, but these become moral obligations for us. Why do we put so many assets to do this? The county designates a lot of assets to do this work. We do it because there's a moral obligation to make sure that we are contending with the people that are trying to destroy the fabric of what we're trying to bring our families up in. Ocean Pines is a family haven. This is a place where people go because they want to have a quiet retirement. They want to enjoy their life. They want to raise their families here in relative peace and harmony. They don't want these kinds of problems. People have fled a lot of our areas to come here because they like what you do. This is why you have a police department. This is why you fund it every year anyways. All I'm asking you to do is recognize the need that you have is to extend funding or at least think about deployment into this area so that you can acquire more of these services that are already readily available. You give us an additional person, it makes us that much stronger. We get another person from Ocean City this year, it makes us that much stronger. We have caseload after caseload, and we can only burden our investigators with so much information. They can only do what they can do in their day, 7 days a week working. We can't work them like an old mule that you just hook to the harness and let them go. There's a lot at stake for us, and we can't overburden these resources, which means what? It means when Chief Massey calls and says, I got a problem over here on the Parkway, and I got this house, and, we're just not sure what's going on. We'd like to be able to respond and take care of that. Now, a chief of police calls, and he has an asset in that unit and says, hey, I need some help over here on Main Street at this location. You ask yourself as business people and as association board members, who's going to get the milk from the cow? Okay? Who's putting up and who's participating and who do we have to answer to about where their people are being deployed? Because if I'm a chief of police and I put somebody in that task force and they're not responding to my immediate need, even though it might be a lesser need by somebody else's standard, I'm going to wonder why I'm not getting any bang for my buck. I've been a chief of police in this county for the town of Snow Hill. I've been at the sheriff's office forever and a day. I have never, ever wanted to be a beggar at the table when it came to asking for help and support and need. That's why I always wanted to be a part. I remember being the chief in Snow Hill. I only had 9 guys working for me in Snow Hill back at the turn of the century. And of those 9 guys, I took one of them my first day on the job and put him in the Criminal Bureau of Investigation because I knew it was important to have access to detectives in that town when I needed them. I mean, there's no time like getting a homicide or a rape case or a major armed robbery and not having detectives available to go deal with it. Instead of just having one. So Chief of Police realized in Pocomoke, instead of having one detective responding to that problem, I've got an entire bureau coming down here to respond to that problem. Now that's leverage. That's taking the money that you've got and saying, I'm going to leverage this $70,000, $80,000, and I'm going to turn it into $1 million just by pulling the lever. That's what I'm going to bring back to Ocean Pines. That to me is the issue for you. We can talk about sharing the money. We can talk about those kinds of things. That's not the reason to do it, although I can give you the numbers, and you can see clearly that there is definitely going to be a return back into the Pines. Lately, as you've all seen, and maybe you haven't, but under the Obama administration, and Eric Holder changed a lot of the policies on asset sharing. The way that we structured our asset sharing was through the Treasury Department, not through the Department of Justice. So because we have a unit in place and because we have MOUs in place with these federal agencies, we were not touched by those new changes. But we still have to work with them because they take half of that money. Now, one of the things that you're not entitled to, that you'll probably never have a problem with in Ocean Pines, is cigarette smuggling. Now, we take down smugglers on the highway through this county on a regular basis. We've got a case right now that will probably be adjudicated this summer where the county will receive about $450,000 in cigarette smuggling money proceeds from a federal investigation that has a nexus out of New York City that links all the way down to North Carolina and all stops in between. All because we got involved at our level, did the intercepts, made some special buys, introduced some people into their organization, and then took them down. Now, Ocean Pines doesn't have a problem, so to speak, with cigarette smuggling, but you would have benefited when that check comes due. That would all be a part that you could go, this is nice. We recovered some money for public safety that we're reinvesting back into the same thing. So, we got money from smuggling cigarettes that we're using to fight heroin addiction in our community. I think it's a win-win for everybody. I would be the last person, okay, and I mean it sincerely, I would be the last person as a former mayor and as a former member of the General Assembly to come in here and talk to you frivolously about spending a tax dollar. I never voted for a tax increase. I don't like them. But when you reapportion public safety money is the one core thing about government that we absolutely must provide, irrelevant and irrespective of what we get back in return. In this case, I think the community's crying out for the need. And I think the sheriff wanted us to come in and make sure that you knew that he sees the need, he gets the phone calls. We encourage you, if you're on the fence about it, step on over and give it a shot. And worst case scenario is you try it for a year and you decide it doesn't work out for Ocean Pines, it's just not your cup of tea. You extract yourself anytime that you want. We don't control the detective except for the investigative purposes. If Chief Massey needs to deploy him for something else because, he's shorthanded or he needs this or he needs that, it's his person and he controls that. We don't tell him, well, you got to give him to us, we're sorry, but he answers to us. No, he answers to Ocean Pines. He answers to our staff when it comes to deployment of assets and conducting those investigations. And quite frankly, the training that detective would receive is incredible. The experience would be incredible. And even if you cycle that detective back and he becomes another member of the staff in Ocean Pines, and you send another officer up to the task force in CET, you're only going to benefit the agency itself by the knowledge, the training, and the experience. That expertise is not easily come by. It's all on-the-job training. And that's something that we can provide, all the training aspects, at no cost to you. All of that comes with that package. We just want to embrace it and wrap it up in as nice a bow as I can and tell you this is something that I hope that you will make that decision in a positive way, and I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Lieutenant.
Thank you. And Mike's fine.
Okay.
Anybody any questions?
I'm looking at you.
I understand then that what you've included in forfeitures is not strictly drug related. It includes the cigarettes.
That's correct. That's correct.
Mike, when you say you refer to a lot of assets coming from various agencies. So when you, for example, say Homeland Security, is that a full-time person?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's what you mean when you say assets.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have one that is stationed in Snow Hill in the CET office, and he's there all the time with our detectives. No questions means I hit it, so thank you all very much.
You always do.
Okay.
Come on.
Make a good decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Okay,
Should we do public comments?
Yes. Public comment. Go ahead. Public comment.
Yeah.
Okay, we do have public comments. Any public comments before we proceed? Continue. Joe.
Joe Reynolds, 84 Watertown Road. That was the most impressive presentation Mike usually does. Very persuasive individual. You guys probably know a lot more about what's going on with this than I do. Department of Homeland Security, if they put a person down there, they look at terrorists as well as cigarettes and drugs. I'm not quite sure what that's all. But anyway, there was a constant mention of the county. I'm guessing this is all involved in some way that the county is coordinating this. Worcester County is our government, not the Ocean Pines Homeowners Association. If we believe that this is something that we should do, I believe that we should bring in our county commissioners and impress on them that we will hire this person, but we want the money from our government, Worcester County. Thank you.
okay, let's stay on tab 12.
Wait.
I'm sorry.
We got another.
Another comment? Yes, sir.
Gene Ringstorff, but still a two-carriageway because they block. Said plus 55.
It was a whole citizens committee, Gene, not just me.
Anyway, two comments. When I use by date expired this past October, one of the issues was the concept of carryover on capital expenditures. And I'm in favor of labeling carryover expenditures as carryover expenditures. But I've heard some discussions that a carryover expenditure does not need to be by the board when it's in a budget. Our company, in my past life, our company did not do that. You had to approve every dollar of the budget. They just wanted to know what was new dollars versus carryover. Concept of saying you don't have to approve carryover, I think is foreign to what my experience was in my past, and I would say that the OPA board should not just gloss over carryover dollars. They should be like. My second comment is, as long as you're discussing the budget, is that I believe for the fourth year in a row, we have in there an IT person and the salary for the IT person. And if, in fact, that's correct, then, and if I'll use a rough gauge of salary and benefit costs of $70,000, we will have collected over $250,000 assessments for that position, which is yet to be filled. And 2 years ago, I raised this point, and one of the directors told me, we're not sure what we want. We're not sure what qualifications we want in IT. in my world, when I was managing a budget for the capital program, if you didn't know what you wanted, you didn't put it in the budget until you knew what you wanted. So either we know what we want and we go ahead and get it, or we don't put it in the budget, particularly since it's a cost and assessment dollar. I know the money might have been used elsewhere, but the point is it wasn't used for what we said we wanted. And just hearing this discussion about what it would cost to put an officer down at this whatever CP center, that might be a better use of those right now, immediately, if we still are undecided what we want by way of an IT. I just urge the board to consider the fact that this is the fourth year that will be collecting assessment for position managers. Thank you. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Any other public comment?
For now, I'm going to suggest we stay on item D on the list. And at the same time, which is in tab 12, I would also reference everyone to page 3 of the summary, which is a head count summary for this budget, which shows a net increase of 0.18 people. Page 3 under summary, under tab 1. Accessing two different tabs. One is tab 1, page 3, which is the summary of the head count. And with that in hand, we can look at the only reason I'm pointing that out is even if we approve the addition of this police position, the additional is less than a quarter of the full-time equivalent increase in the number of employees we have.
Say that again.
You look at this page, which is in summary, page 3. It's a head count report, full-time equivalent head count report, which shows all of the additions and subtractions, if you will, of the head count of the organization. Even if we approve the addition of the police,
Yes.
even if we approve the addition of the policemen, we are still at a 0.18 increase in the head count, which is less than a quarter of a person full-time equivalent. So I just wanted to point out that there is a linkage back.
How do you arrive at that, then? How do you?
Lower right-hand corner.
I see the 1.18. I see it.
Well, you can explain this chart.
Where we've made adjustments in departments. Remember, we went through department by department. We talked about where we made some cuts and we lowered some manpower in the department. So what we do every year is provide a full-time equivalent schedule so you can see all in which way we're moving up or down on that. So as we went through each department, we identified we're making a cut.
So these may be open recs that are not going to be filled, and that's how you get the 0.18 increase year over year, correct? No, open requisitions. You're not going to fire anybody. You don't let anybody go.
We just don't. A lot of it has seasonal and part-time. We've got a lot of seasonal part-time folks that add to that bottom line.
That you won't fill. It becomes an open requisition. Yeah,
correct.
That you don't.
That is correct. And
so these are actual bodies. These are not requisitions or anything of that nature. Positions.
The FTE?
This.
Position. Positions. Yes, sir. That's
So
correct.
Bodies.
Yes.
They're actual. Yes. They're not open requisitions or total requisition. You know what I mean by requisition? You understand where I'm coming from?
Not filled?
Huh?
Position open but not filled?
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
Are they included in here?
Yes.
They are.
Yes.
So we have, from my list, we have two issues under tab 12. One was the CET program staff approval or removal of that from the budget, and the $75,000 engineering capital expenditure were the two things I had under this tab for further discussion, and we had just had another presentation, so that's where we are on that. So Bill, you're raising your hand. Go for it.
Well, everybody knows I'm an ex-police. I used to be a supervisor for several task forces. They're a great thing. But we do have a problem. It's here, and it's going to keep on coming. And if we don't nip it in the bud and get ahead of it, it's going to be a problem. However, the thing that swayed me, because I was a little iffy on this, thing that swayed me, this is the 4th year that I've sat with Chief Massey. In the first year I was on the Budget and Finance Committee, I asked him how many people he had, and he told me how many people, how many times they're out there by themselves. For 4 years I've been waiting for him to say, give me somebody new. And he doesn't do it. And he said in his presentation, I don't come to you unless I think it's very, very, very needy, and I'm coming to you. This is the first time in 4 years that he's ever come and said, please give me this because I think it's definitely necessary. And that's totally just the respect for that gentleman, not coming every year saying, give me more, give me more, give me more, give me more. And then him coming and saying, I really think there's a necessity for this. That, push me over the edge. Thank you.
I also was involved in law enforcement for 28 years. 23 I spent with mostly task forces, 13 years in narcotics. Most of them were all with this type of unit. Great benefits. They do great work. It's outstanding what they do. The only concern that I have, and I do want to talk about it, is that these task forces, usually it's a municipality that belongs to it. It's funded by the county taxes, state taxes, that we all pay here also. And I'm just wondering, most of these municipalities can give a guy, because their police forces are big enough that they can lend the guy to that task force and receive the benefit of that. My only concern here, and I'm wrestling with that, and I'd like to get some back, is as a homeowners association, should we as a homeowners association take the money from our members to pay for an officer to work outside the homeowners association? Probably 95% of the time they're going to be outside this association. It's a big county. And that's the only thing that I'm wrestling with is if we need police here. I asked for the 2015 statistics. The police statistics I haven't received yet. If we need a police officer here, there's a need for it. I have no problem funding another position to work inside our community. If we need it, it should be funded. And I'm pro-police. My only concern is paying someone from our funds to work outside our community most of the time. And he already told you the overtime is going to be ridiculous. Sometimes they work 24/7, and that's something that we would fund ourselves. So it could add up to an expense for someone working outside the community, and that's the only thing I want to get some feedback from the other board members about.
Funny you should take that tack, because I'm thinking to ask Mike how the county and how the sheriff's department views the Ocean Pines Police Department. And, I think most of you know that I do go to meetings of the commissioners twice a month. And they really do view Ocean Pines as an integral part of the county. And I think that they view, I'm speaking for myself now, I think that they view our police force as an integral part of the community and the county as a whole. And I just get the sense it's a partnership between the various agencies, even law enforcement, within the county, in the state, and Ocean Pines. I will say this. I will vote any way that the attorney, the two law enforcement officers vote. They have my vote. Whichever way they determine is in the best interest of this community, I will vote their way. But from my experience, Tom, I think that we are viewed as a very, very important cog in the county machinery. Law enforcement, fire, you name it.
Now, Could I address a couple of things? Jack, to your point, we are, invited down to the presentation for the budget every year, as we may not be titled municipality, but we present at the same time municipalities do. So we're in the same, I think you're right in the way they look at us. Secondly, to your point, Tom, overtime was something specifically discussed, because I met with CETC, Mike McDermott, Nate Passwater, Chief Master. We met to go over this. The MOU that he was referring to, Memorandum of Understanding, we can make a determination of how much overtime. Chief Master would have the ability to limit that, because that was a concern that was brought up, rightly so. And Mike just said it could be ongoing. We make that determination. We can actually say we can do X amount of hours a week, a month, whatever. We put that out there. And when I was speaking with him about that, we went into a great discussion about it, because I asked that question, and both Nate and Mike were like, "That's up to your chief. You all tell us, and we'll spell it out in the MOU of what those limits are. Because if not, it would be limitless." And they recognize the burden that could put on us. So they were willing to and they understand our responsibility to our membership to keep that at a minimum. Yeah, but it's a good question. The other thing is, Bill, to your point, the chief hasn't really approached us with a lot of items. I mean, they've been 10 years with the same number of police force, and I'd argue that we continue to grow as a homeowner association, as a community, where there are a lot more things impacting us. The drug impact is something the chief and I have been talking about. He, over the last 3 years, has kept escalating. We're watching. Governor Hogan just did a report showing you how bad heroin is. It's a national epidemic, but how it's impacting Maryland. There are a lot of things that we don't necessarily publicize with the overdoses or the arrest or the things our officers are involved with on a regular basis. So understanding the concern about leaving Ocean Pines, to your point, having an officer there, I actually, and I'm not because I'm favorable to what Mike said, but I do believe we're not losing an officer. We're gaining more resources that will help us internally far more. We're the largest player in the county for the majority of the year. Ocean City obviously blooms up in the summer, and there's other dynamics there. But for us, it's a year round. And having Mike and his team, and we work great, by the way. The relationship we have with the county is fantastic, from the police resources, those type of things. But the fact of the matter is, by having someone on the team, it does enhance our ability to impact our community directly. I mean, we're not looking at the focus is outside. I mean, with 15 overdoses, with the lives that our team has already saved with naloxone drug that they used to. Our team members are saved because they're learning how to do it, how to impact. The other thing that's significant that Mike hit, but I didn't think he covered it as well as I would have liked him to, the training that they have our folks go through. If we decide a year from now we don't want this, we don't want participants, but we just bring that trained officer who's had this specialized training back here, and that's a great resource. If we didn't have to, you guys as officers know, a lot of money spent for that type of training. I think there's some options here.
Well, that's a question. What's the length of the MOU?
Well, we decide. I mean, it's up to us. Yes, sir. And you heard what Mike said. We can cancel. We're able to get out of this 6 months in if we like. It's our decision.
One of the things that we're at a disadvantage, I asked this at the last about the MOU, and it would be nice to see it, or somebody else's MOU. I mean, that doesn't have to just get a feeling. But given what you said, if you're talking about our ability to limit, and basically we get right terms. I think that it's I don't want to say unique, everything except word, but it's a good opportunity that offers advantages that you can't get by adding another police officer for. So if you're going along and you haven't really adding police, and I think that's appropriate, but then this would be an exception, I think, because of the leverage. Yeah.
And I did, and to your point, I mean, I did talk to Mike at length also during our meetings about what do we have to pay for? Salary is really the thing, and limiting the overtime. That's why I could speak directly to it. Everything else, I mean, I even said, look, well, we don't have the asset to have one of our vehicles in snow hill. Fine, we'll provide that. That's written into the MOU. So we can make particular requests in the MOU to protect ourselves and to limit our exposure as an association for what it's going to cost to have our member participate. Again, but to Mike's point, I don't see it as a dollar factor. I just see it as the resources that we have available to us by actively participating in that, I just think are going to be invaluable. I mean, I just don't think you can put a dollar amount on it. And we're not a small. Yes, ma'am.
Weighing in now as the last person involved in law enforcement. I had reservations initially, as I expressed, when it was trying to be sold to us as it'll pay for itself forfeiture fund. Having been the head of the narcotics unit for city, I knew how that worked, and that I knew wasn't going to be the case. I think Chief, when he came back to us, was a lot more candid about that. There is a long period of time that goes into applying for those funds, and when you heard Lieutenant McDermott talk about feds, you want to get the money from the feds, well, that means now let the feds have their hands. And we all know what happens when that occurs. So then they take their big piece out, and what's left is then a portion based on your particular participation. You have to be mindful, obviously, of the chief has already put in, I think, $10,000 in overtime in next year's budget. I don't know whether he was thinking that was with the existing force or trying to see that that's going to part of the CP person, but when you limit their hours, you also limit the amount of dollars that you then collect. It's all based on what your percentage of participation is when they do this. Now, I was happy to hear that it wasn't just drugs and that they throw in cigarettes because they get a lot of money on grabbing cigarettes to go up and down 113 here. So I'm feeling better about the fact that we're being realistic about how much we're really going to get back. You talked about what Force Here has done this year relative to overdoses. Well, we did that without having a CP person.
Agreed.
So I don't think that would be a basis for saying we need to participate. And we do get cooperation from the other units without having a person in that. All that being said, I better that now.
And again, when I give the stats, it's not to validate for this particular position. It's more to validate the issue, the heroin, the drugs themselves, and how they're growing and moving faster and faster and more rapidly within our community. So it wasn't meant as an offset for it. It's just saying it's there.
There's no question about that.
And that's
no
the concern. So we've got to make a decision whether we're going to be reactive to it or if we're going to be proactive and try to get ahead of it. And it's better to be ahead of crime. I mean, it's better to be ahead of it and cut it off before it overcomes us. And again, it's not a gloom and doom. It's just, I think, being proactive. Our community being safe has got to be one of the critical pillars of what makes our community so great. And so I know it's an expense. I know people say, well, how much are we spending on there? And I got. But the safety of the community you can't put a dollar amount. I mean, it's just something that it's a critical component that I just think when the chief asks us and says we need it, and I see how hard the team works 24/7, and some of the things to build, to your point, some of the things they do here, we just don't highlight it a whole lot. We don't want to talk about crime as much, but it's there. I mean, you all know, you law enforcement officers know. You dealt with it. You know what our team's looking at. I mean, I don't think this is an unreasonable request. And again, the fact that the MOU we can craft in a way that it covers us for an out if we.
Yes. Yeah, at your point, yeah, that's
fair enough. I saw a couple looks. I thought, all right, fair enough. Thank you, Sheriff.
At this point, I will weigh in and to possible. I'm kind of where Jack is. I'm looking at U3. And I agree with what Dave said as well. I'm looking at U3. I'm hearing a consensus that we keep this in the budget. And if we are, then let's move on to the $75,000 capital expense which has to do with research and the study. And I think the issue there, Bob, was
Well, what was the decision there, Tom?
Yeah,
We're gonna leave it in?
we're keeping it in.
before you move on, let me
I'd like
just
to
say,
say something.
well, you certainly can, but
You
before you
certainly
do
can, you're the
that,
president.
before you move on, let me just be clear about the way I think this MOU is correct. Some of it is going to have to be we're not going to customize some of it. But the part that we have flexibility in, maybe we say it's for 1 year. And if you want to limit the overtime, I don't know about that part of it, but maybe you want to say it's for 1 year. And as Mr. said, we'll see how it goes.
Well, that's why I would vote for it, because I think it's a good idea on its surface, but there could be problems with it. But if we can get out within the year, that would be fine. If it doesn't work for us and it doesn't do anything like the other task force, we're not successful. I made a note of that right away. But we don't want to have an unsuccessful task force. We want to have it successful. So if we see that it is successful, we continue. If we don't, then we can withdraw. This budget is for 1 year, so I think we're in alignment. Right. Okay.
Next would be, you're asking about 75. Okay, you all know that we've talked about needing to make some changes to the police department, remodel, new, extend, whatever. What this allows us to do, and again, this was following your guidance, so let's look at everything, all these items we're faced with, and start addressing. Let's start researching them. So this was money that we want to set aside to start to do the study, to start to spend the money we need to figure out what we need to do to bring our police station up to speed, whether it's an extension, a remodel, or a new building, whatever it is. This doesn't say it's moving in one direction or the other. It's just seed money to get started down that process.
But how do we come up with the number? How do we come up with 75,000 if we don't know what we're really looking for? I'm seriously confused.
No, understood. Again, I've got to put something in the budget
I got you.
to start the process. Okay. With that being said, you can lower it if you want. I mean, whatever it ends up being.
I mean, are we talking? Help me out a bit. Are we talking about an engineering study of the existing facility?
Okay, there's no. I don't have it because if you recall, I had the facility planning document handed to you the day of the budget. We finished it the day before, as we're finishing this up. So there are a number of major capital projects that wait to see what you all approve, and then we'll determine each one of them will have to be addressed independently in whatever way makes sense. If we brought the country club up this morning, we already have existing engineering studies. So what we're going to do is pull those out. We're going to pull everything we've already done on them and see what's reasonable as the next step. What do we need to spend money on? So all this does is put budgeted money in. We don't have to spend it. We can spend a portion, we don't have to spend any, but it's a process, much like we did with the yacht club, a few years back. And if you remember at that time, for those that were here, we basically ran two lots, one for the yacht club, one for the country club, did research, had drawings on each, until we got to a point where, and at each step of the way, the board made decisions, yes, keep moving. Then we got to the point to say which one, and the board said, okay, no with the country club, let's go with the yacht club. I envision the same thing, but I just can't tell you for each of the major capital projects exactly what the first step will. Country club's the greatest way to explain, because we already have some engineering studies and reports. We just need to put it all together in one document. So, okay, here's where we are. Here's what we think the next step would be. And again, I'll come to you guys. When we do major projects, I come to you all every step of the way. We update it monthly. So we're all in this together when we go down that process.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I'm struggling with is, I know you're referring to your capital CIP document, the multi-project. What I'm struggling with is, a study that encompasses looking at the architectural feasibility and the preliminary engineering requirements of relocating the police force out on 589 rolled into the renovation of the existing facility that he currently, has to deal with. And that's what I'm struggling with as to what this study is all about. I mean, what is the scope? What is the range?
Again, that's fine. There's no defined process. What we will need to look at is remodeling, we're going to have to look at expanding and potential relocation. We got to look at all three to make a reasonable recommendation. We're not going to, it won't be a one path. It won't be, here's what we're doing. We need to put all options on the table, lay them all out, do all our homework down each of those paths, and each step of the way, check in with the board, here's where we are, what do you think? Okay, let's get rid of this one, let's keep moving on these two. And that's how the process will occur. So I don't have a plan specifically laid out because I don't have an approved project to move forward with it. You all say, let's start looking at this is something we want to leave in the budget, go. We'll start down that path to figure out what the next step is going to be. And again, I think all three options should be on the table, much like the country club. Remodel, replace. I don't think we'll relocate per se, but remodel and replace are the two things. So we're going to have to give you both pros and cons to each so we can make a decision which one makes the most sense. Yes, sir.
Everybody knows this is my number one priority. I said it last week when we were talking about the beach club. I'm all for the beach club bathrooms. Let's get it done. This is my number one priority because I believe these people are working in an unsafe environment. And sooner or later, something's going to happen, and we should have been doing something on this. $75,000 ain't going to cut it if we're putting $525 in for bathrooms. I think we need to put something substantial in here so this just isn't whistling past the graveyard. Nothing's going to happen. This was my number one priority, like getting these people safe.
Well, clear that up for me then. I mean, $75,000 isn't going to do us anything but buy us a study. I mean,
we don't know that. Well, that's why I'm saying. Let's put some more in there.
Right. So what I understand you to mean is, and I certainly agree with you, Bill. It may be a priority. What I'm hearing you say is $75,000 is okay. We go through we go through the various steps that Bob outlined, and the majority of the board decides that. I'll just pick one of the scenarios. The scenario is the police department stays where it is, but it has to be expanded. We have to do an add-on. How do we do that as far as funding it is concerned? Because all we funded is a $75,000 study.
That's what I don't want to happen. Say, okay, we're 75 is done. We can't do any more. That's why I'm saying put money in like we did for the bathrooms. The bathrooms could be, but we have substantial money allocated there, for that. Put some substantial money in here so we can do it. Otherwise, you're going to come back, it's next year, Newport or whatever. Oh, it's out of budget. It's out of budget. We can't do anything because it's out of budget. That's what I'm trying to avoid because we've had that in the past. Now, we talked about it in agreement last week or last meeting where we're not really into that. We put the money up, and if we have to spend more, we agree that this out-of-budget thing, when it's something that needs to be done, that's not set in stone. You can't say, oh, it's out of budget. We're not going to do it. I thought that we had a consensus that if it made common sense and it was more than that, then, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I didn't get that,
Bill, let me clarify and support what you just said, because part of what the discussion that went on was the idea that the board in general did not like the concept of a large ticket placeholder. I'll use that phrase. They didn't like that because there was really nothing to base that number on. We didn't have, like in the bathrooms, we have an estimate already in hand of what it would cost to do the remodeling or refurbishing or whatever word you want to use. We had a figure, something to work from to put that in the budget. We don't really have a blueprint, a model to follow. But I, like you, I believe there is a consensus, at least on this board, is that we would put the research dollars required in with the understanding that if the time came to do the work, nobody's going to raise their hand and go, it's not in the budget, we can't do it. The understanding was to go find out what it is and be willing to move when the time comes, because they didn't want the big ticket placeholders to be put in there because of a very good reason. You put a big ticket placeholder in, the implication is you don't have as much reserves left over because you've used it up. So, and I agree with that. So I think there is a consensus among this group I believe I'm right, that that was the approach we were going to take unless we had a bona fide study of some kind to go by to set the number, which is what we did earlier this morning. So I'm in agreement with your understanding. Does everybody still agree with that?
I think also Dave made a mention placement reserve. I think doesn't this come under that? If we have a $75,000 study and we find that we do need 500,000, whatever, can go to replacement reserve. Is that true?
This is listed as legacy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's still replacement.
That's
It's still replacement.
Yes.
It's not new capital.
That's it, to be determined.
It's still reserves.
But replacement reserve.
Yes, sir.
Exactly
Yes,
correct.
correct.
Just keep going.
Still replacement reserve.
Example was, and I think you're all right, we had this discussion and said, look, don't put $500,000 in there. We don't expect to spend it. Scale it down, which is what we brought back. Secondly, this morning, we made a decision to spend near $40,000 on an unfunded, unbudgeted, but it was a reasonable expectation. We need to get something addressed. So we've not only said we were going to do it, we've actually gone through that process and did it this morning. So that was probably the best part of the meeting this morning, was we actually, I say that lightly, we actually, we had something that was unfunded, unbudgeted, but we needed to address it, so the board did. So that's, so I think we're going down the path. I didn't put more dollars in it based on what the board guidance was. Don't just put big numbers in there and not expect, Yes, ma'am.
In my limited experience working with you,
Uh-oh.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes, ma'am.
I find you to be a person who generally has done his homework. And so I have an idea that perhaps you have some thoughts about option 1, 2, and 3, what they might be, and maybe some numbers about what they might be. And if something like that can be shared with us, then maybe we would be in a position to actually put more dollars aside for this. How do you respond to that?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Because you all know when I say this, half the board's going to want to hang me, and half the board's going to want to support it. So, and I say that lightly. No,
I thought I'm saying was a little over the top.
Okay, maybe not.
Roll out the gallows,
Boot out the
please.
door.
Bring it down. There's no such thing as half.
That's right.
So, there's no secret that I absolutely, and being in the community, and again, I'm going to give you kind of my normal, little longer answer than you probably expect, but yes, I do have something in mind. I put together a capital facility plan as a talking document, being in a community over 25 years, being involved at board level or this level for the last 6 years, seeing how emergency conditions impact our community, going through Sandy, going through this past weekend, some of the things, and then looking at how we interact with Ocean City, with the county during these type of events. All those things lead me to believe we need to look at public safety kind of to that next level. So that's why my facility planning document, and it's a planning document to begin the process. It doesn't mean what it's going to do. The board's the body that makes that decision. But I do believe a public safety building, which would mean away from here and something on 589, is where I would go. But I'm not the decision maker there. I'll make the recommendations. And that'll be one of the paths that I'll share with you in detail why that works. We will seriously look at every model. We'll look at everything and vet it fully. But my intent would go out there for a host of reasons.
But at the same time, do you also have some ideas about if we remodel in place versus if there's a spot behind the existing facility where we do a septic stand, for example? Do you have some numbers in mind about those options so that, like, if we wanted to say, forget item number 1, which you just described, and give me some numbers on 2 and 3, what would that look like?
Yeah, I don't, because what we have to figure out is if we do it here, our expansion's probably going to be directly this way to the parking lot area where it is, and then we'll have to use some of the parking here to offset. But what we're going to have to do, we've already started, the chief and number of the officers sat down, and we've already done a needs analysis for what the department needs, and part of it was in the report I gave you, to understand what changes we would have to make. We're definitely going to need to expand. We're not going to be able to remodel on that spot. It's just too small. But that expansion, a lot of it's going to be determined by what that final analysis is. We've also started looking at other police agencies in the area and what they've done, size, shape, scope. We're also very, very fortunate. Chief Massey's been through this exact process in Ocean City. And as part of where the public safety building, they were very successful with what they did in Ocean City. We don't need anything to that scale, but I mean, that's where the mind starts to think. We have an experienced guy as chief of police that's been through that. We're going to rely heavy on his input and his team's input to where it is. So I'd love to say, yeah, it's going to be $500 million. We're going to put it here, and the square footage is 5,000 square feet. I just don't know that yet. If we get to go ahead, and I'm getting the feeling we're going to move with something, we'll start to really dial that in and give you a good analysis. So I don't want to give you it would be wrong of me to say it's 250,000 as much as it is 75. I just took the starting.
The other piece of this also links to another tab in this book. There's also the fire side of this. What do they need going forward? So there is a linkage, at least in either the first or the third option. I forget what order they came in. There's a linkage to the fire department, what they need or don't need in their own assessment, which would impact, as I understand it, 589 for a location. So again, it's more to it than simply just our police force and us. It's also association with lining up. You get a lot more bang for your buck if you work with each other as opposed to having totally separate buildings. At least that's my view. So again, I just referenced that there's another tab in this book that will come to play on this assessment as well as to whether they do or don't. What do they need? If there's a difference between need and want. What they want is something, and what they need might be something different. We're the same way. What I just heard Bob say is that the assumption has already basically been made that the space we have is not big enough, that you can't even remodel it. I've heard that from Bill. Haven't heard that from other people.
I think
You're saying the same thing? Okay. Yeah. So in essence, the stay where you are and remodel is not really something.
Well,
necessarily.
Remodel versus expand.
Well, expand is a different
Expand
issue.
is remodeling also. That's a form of remodeling.
Okay.
No, it's not. It's adding space.
It's adding space.
It's not a form of remodeling, I think.
Dave had his hand up. Yes,
okay. Yeah, I guess the conversation is good though, because I just wrote down two things. One was I said scope study, and frankly, this is my single big concern, and it hasn't diminished even slightly. I figure we're going to have a $75,000 study, whatever it's cost, and then we're going to end up with a design of a public safety facility out on 589 on our property out there. That's that's my concern.
That's not accurate, though.
Okay.
I mean, that's not the intent.
And yet, this conversation hasn't diminished that concern a little bit. I'll take your word for it, Bob. Even so. And the second thing was a minor thing, really. It's funding it out of putting that $75,000 down in the reserve. But we're talking about doing a preliminary study or an engineering study out of the Pleasant reserves. I think that's acceptable too.
Capitalized engineering study.
But I also think that considering the fact that we have a fair amount of information about this area, everybody realizes we have had a stormwater management plan developed for this entire thing when we built the community center. So, I mean, it answers, you're not going to have to go back to that again because we didn't put anything else in. And so 75,000 seems like a lot if, in fact, you're not going to design a major facility yet on 589. If you are, then it's not going to be. So I really am concerned about finding the scope of of this. I believe our first effort would be to meet our requirement, and our requirement is to expand the space in the facility, right? And I believe expansion should be the first look at. Anyway, that's mine.
Yeah, and to augment what you said, Dave, when I listened to Tom was talking about this linkage. Because that facility ends up being an administration building as well as a new firehouse. And I don't know if this $75,000 study is part of that linkage.
I don't know either. I didn't hear, by the way, but the balance come in and tell us 589 fit sleep during that.
He didn't tell you about a new building on 589.
I know he didn't.
Okay, you didn't fall.
Yeah, but
validating you didn't fall asleep.
Tom is saying, well, we have to get back to Taft Fire.
It's linkage. Call it linkage.
The fire department's looking to replace the South Station. They're going to start a capital fund replacement. That's a fact. I'm not making that up. They approached me a year ago about it. They talked to some board members. So at that time, not this board, Cheryl. I saw you look. No, ma'am, not this board.
That was last year.
So that's not new. And when you start looking at our community pays for these facilities, whether it's police or fire or whatever else we do, we're paying for it. So if they're telling me they need a new firehouse and the police are saying they need more space, then we need to start to look a little larger and go, is there a way to combine resources to be more impactful, more effective at a lower cost for our residents, not just today, but in the future? And that's what started the whole conversation about even looking out there, because we don't have space in either of the locations where they are now to do a joint facility. That's really what started it. So again, I think it's a great idea to look at, but I think it's got to be a parallel path. What we have here and the space we have here, and come up with an idea of what to do here, and then come up with something out there. And then we'll decide what makes more sense at the time. We don't have enough information to make the decision, but we know we have to do something, so I need resources to do it. That's all. And the board said, don't put $500,000 in there, get something more reasonable, so we back down, because $500,000 is what's in there now for a police station, but we don't have any plans or anything. So we need to start somewhere. So you all said back it down. We did, and it's just a reasonable stab at it.
Mentioned that last.
I'm sorry?
I think we mentioned that last year.
We did, and that's why we adjusted it this year.
That's why we changed. The reference for me that I made to the fire department was simply make sure it's full disclosure that everything might be going on here. But I think if we can, as a board, state, keep the 75 in here with a very clear understanding, tape meeting, is that there is an intent to have, in essence, 2 or 3 options that comes out of this thing, and one of them is an expansion of the current police location and remodeling of that particular location as one of the options that we expect to see out of this study. Other studies, be they involve the fire department or other things, can happen, but that's why I said I raised the issue of we're not looking at simply remodeling where we are, because I had heard from numerous people that wasn't, and now you're weighing in saying the same thing, that don't spend any of that $75,000 simply to remodel within the confines of where you are. So the first option isn't just remodel where we are. It is, in fact, an expansion of where we are is the first, and it has to be part of what comes to us.
That will meet the requirement.
Yeah.
An expansion of where we are will meet the police department requirement, which is what we're trying to say.
Yes.
And that should be exactly the first option.
Right. It should be a option.
It's one of the options.
See,
well, I don't
It should
agree.
be an option. You all then decide which one's the priority, and that's what we go at.
I don't agree.
Okay, again, we're doing a budget item for a placeholder. We're not debating how to build or not build the police station.
No, but we are debating what $75,000 and $75,000 is.
Okay.
Here's my concern. We, I believe, collectively as a board, tell me I'm wrong, are committed to getting some things done. Okay. We are moving ahead with the bridges, long overdue. that's being done. You're taking care of the drainage problem. Great. We know that we need to move forward on the beach club. We're going to do something. We also know that we need to do something with this race we call the country. And so I think our concern is those are the things we already have, need to deal with, need to improve them, and let's go in that direction. And we know it's going to cost us some money, but come on, let's do it. We've got some money. I think our concern, my concern, I should say, is one of the ideas that you have as one of the options is this facility out of 589 that I fear will take away from these other things that we already own and need to improve upon and need to and spend our dollars.
Here. And yes, perfect, right on. And let me add, from a banking point of view, Cheryl, we're going to talk about the cost of putting that out there. It is estimated that that particular dirt, that piece of property, is worth between $3 to $3.5 million. Today's market. No?
$1.5 million.
Oh, okay. Excuse me. $1.5 million. $1.5 million. So whatever cost of construction, that site, in that location, you have to add $1.5 million to the total cost, and that's my concern.
Okay, here now I'm going to give you a slightly different perspective, as I'm always going to do this week about now. What I'm trying to do, and to the board's point right now, the board's in a position where you want to spend money to get after projects. I'm good with that, no issue. Matter of fact, I like that better than not doing anything. My concern is making sure that we understand not just one project, but multiple projects and how they interact with each other, because the association as a whole, you cannot separate the components and not think there's no impact on the other components. So I'm just trying to make sure that we're looking at everything. Factually, fire department's going to look to do something with their building. That's going to be money out of our pockets. Factually, we've got to do something with the police department. Money out of our pockets. Factually, we've got to do something with the country club. Money out of our pocket. I get all that. But if we don't understand that doing one thing may have an impact on another, okay, that's all I'm saying. There's a number of things out there in an overarching look that we have to look at. There's no decision to put it anywhere. I'm going to throw ideas out there, and the board makes the decision, and that's the path we go. I mean, it's really that simple. So I'm not missing the point. You all want to get after projects. I'm good with that. We deliver projects. Tell me what you want to get done, and we'll get it done. Well,
I think it's a function of focus. I mean, that's okay.
We have a comment from the public. Just one quick comment. The 1.2 million, the land at 589 is all. That's not enough. Okay. But whatever it costs, 3 million, whatever it costs, it's on the book. It's not enough. You may say it becomes part of the project. We already own it. We already bought it years ago.
Well, I guess what I'm worried about a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit, is that if we go ahead and have the $75,000 engineering study, and we find out we should expand it out here and push it out there, then all of a sudden we turn around and we decide, oh, we're going to build that thing out of 589, and we've wasted how much money building that out here. Is that the right thing to do or not? I don't know. What do you think, Tom?
Well,
Tom's looking at me. I'm looking at Tom.
My take has always been that you pass a budget for a year with think for what's coming. I understand the reservations. The implication, by the way, that things haven't been getting done. I've got an entire list of things capital-wise that we have done in the last few years to address issues. There were many, 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 many issues that needed to be addressed when I first joined the forces of this board. And many, many of them have been addressed at this point, and we're now moving on to the next one. I wholeheartedly agree. Country Club is something that needs to be addressed without question. When we get to the Country Club, we'll talk about that. I don't think we're going to necessarily run out of money to pay for some of this research that needs to be done. Clearly, there is an intent on this board that I'm hearing is we need to address the police problem. without question. We have at least 4 members, if not 5, saying that we need to make sure that is covered in the proposal. I said the same thing. That makes 6. I think I'm a long-term planning kind of person as well that says, okay, as you do that, at least take a look at the linkage to the fire department and what they're doing, and look at what the solution will be. That might, if you've read the CIP document that Bob put together, it also references meeting rooms. This is a domino effect of things, but in the end, whatever we get back from these dollars has to have a solution that solves the police problem. And then the board of directors will make the decision of what we do. And if we decide, because we really haven't yet figured out what all's going to go on, the police department has to be fixed. And if this has to be done, then we go build it, and we did it. And I'm going to be long gone off the board at that point, so somebody else is going to be on this board faced with making the decision of what happens, if anything, on 589. To me, the 75, we've made it clear that we want a solution to the police situation we have. Made it clear. I think we're in sync. You don't have to spend the 75 if you don't need to. I'm for keeping the 75 where it is. That's where I am.
And understand, I don't have the checkbook to spend the 75 without board approval.
Correct.
Down the path. I mean, just because it's in the budget doesn't mean I have the check. I still have to come to you for every expenditure along the way, whatever the number is.
You know, maybe it's a way of looking at it. When I was took a job trying to put together a CIP, one of the things that we would take on myself, Jerry, was that what we were going to look at, try and look at what are our hard requirements, what are hard, and basically how do you meet those. So for an example, I think we're at a hard requirement with respect to the police. Well, straightforward way may not be feasible, but certainly the way of fixing that is to expand. What is the requirement? The requirement is size. There's not enough room. You need to make more. How do you do it? You've got a building that can potentially be expanded. That's the requirement. The same thing goes with every other thing. Look at what the requirement. Do not look at how we can make this better. And think about how great the interaction of these two departments is. And think about how, if we had a better view, we could sell a lot more. Think about what is the requirement that we need to meet. And that's what I'm concerned about. We're not doing that, and we don't get anywhere because of it. The country club is a perfect example. I mean, I've seen the presentations that have been. Well, we can have a country club. All we have to do is redo the golf course and we'll get all these package plays in and we'll be approved there. I mean, think about what it is that we really need in Ocean Ponds. And guess what? We're not really a premier. You saw those pictures that we have this morning. I'm sorry. I love Ocean Ponds. I'm happy in Ocean Ponds. I think Ocean Ponds is. But don't tell me we're a premier resort community because we're sort of down a level from. And I'm sorry, I'm making my thing. But this is the way I feel. Address the requirement. Get it done. Get it right. And if you've undershot it a little bit, so what?
At the end of the day, so we can move on, we've been an hour and a half ago. At the 75, we have a consensus of at least 4 of us to keep this thing in the budget.
Yeah, the thing that I heard from Bob was I don't have to spend the total.
No, you don't.
No. And that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Well, I'm okay with leaving it at 75. It's not a big deal one way or the other. I do want taking it out. But you're saying the replacement reserves is
Replacement.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't.
It's out of reserve.
It's out of reserve. It's out of reserve. It's all the same.
Yeah.
It's all the same function.
Next issue.
It's coming out of the total column of the reserve.
The total column. That's a very good place.
Yeah, numbers, we're at PR tab 6. The question that was back.
Back to A, right?
We're back to A. It said we had asked for a breakdown of the $30,000 publications, newspaper, magazines, trade, to discuss to ensure we have enough funding.
Where did Art go?
He left. He's smart. He knows where to leave.
No.
All right,
Okay.
question.
Yeah, item A.
Yeah, I see it. Right?
Yeah, well, you didn't ask it. Cheryl asked it, so I'm going to give her the number for the entire board, obviously. But this was Cheryl's question about breakdown of publications, newspaper, magazine. There was money in there of approximately $30,000 you wanted a breakdown on. Publications is approximately 1,500. Newspapers is 21,000, and magazines are 75.
This 30,000 is on page 3 of tab 6. If you want to see it, it's right there.
It's a quarterly, right?
I'm sorry?
The newspaper, you said newspaper, it's quarterly. $21,000.
This is after.
Not
quarterly.
What is the, yeah,
I was
$21,000 for newspaper?
Annual, that's you asked me, or I was asked to break down the $30,000
Correct,
in the
correct,
item, and it's broken down into those elements of what we spend for each. I didn't give you by month or by quarter, because it's not that, it's an annual number.
Okay.
That was at the bottom of the sheet there. What newspaper?
The newsletter is listed up above.
Okay.
Wow.
Anything else?
Not yours.
I'm on naughtiness. Tom said he's on naughty list. He doesn't get in.
Cheryl, anything else beyond that for this? You need at this point of where we are. I'm just trying to move, get.
Well, I actually would ask the same question. What does the newspaper figure, since it's the largest of 30,000? What does that represent?
We didn't break down every paper that we advertise in and when. It's throughout the year as different events, activities. We put information out in the papers.
Okay.
We didn't break it down. I was asked to give a break of what we spend on all three of those. I didn't go down to which papers get how much of what type of advertising.
Josh and Tom are living on Easy Street.
Josh's paper got money for Tom's.
Okay. Item B on the list, and I think there's already a consensus to this, but I just wanted to confirm it. That tab 8, that the board is in consensus to remove the scissors lift capital $20,000 from the capital sheet. I think everybody agrees with. Okay, we're
Not
doing-
everybody, no.
Not everybody. Okay.
I think we're making a mistake. I think we're going to pay more in rent over the next 10 years, and probably 10 times.
How is this information? I just made consensus decision 6-1. I mean, we didn't vote, but.
That's how this process works. You know that.
No, he said 7-0, and I said no, it's not 6 points.
That's okay. Now, how does this impact what Bob is going to say Saturday?
It will be removed from his presentation on Saturday.
Okay, so it's not going to be in the presentation Saturday.
Oh no, I'm
And you're okay with that, though?
Yeah, it's a consensus.
Okay, because there will be other things where there may not be a consensus, or that I won't be okay with.
If there's not a consensus,
and
then he leaves it as he wrote it.
And he leaves it as he wrote it, and then we.
But we're going with majority vote, right?
No.
But we're not.
What I'm saying is that in fact, if we have an obvious consensus and the minority doesn't object, then we just make a change. But if it's a 4-3 vote, and you make the change and announce, well, this is what the majority of the board said, then I object. I do object. This is your budget right through Saturday and until we approve, then it becomes our budget.
Again,
That's not news. That's how we've done it for a very long time.
What are you taking out?
scissor lift.
Scissor lift.
Okay, the next is tab 11, Fire Department. We really did not have any discussion around this. There were very few questions of any of the fire department while they were here. It's on the list simply for that reason.
Well,
And so let's,
what questions could you ask, Tom? You've got a proposed budget and a balance sheet. You got nothing. You got nothing to work with. I don't know what questions you could ask. I think the questions that we came up with was what the salary figure of whatever the heck it is, salary and benefits of over $1 million. How many people does that represent? That's all we get. So I guess what I'm saying is the documentation is not significant to make any judgment call at all.
actually, he answered that question, I believe, saying that there were 14 full-time.
Yeah, I understand the answer, but the only way you got to the answer is somebody posed the question.
Yeah.
There's no other documentation here other than somebody asking a question. So a balance sheet and Bob and Art's worksheet, I think we need a little bit. I would like to have the fire department give us a little bit more meat in their presentation. Put it that way. No?
No, you had your. I'm
had
sorry,
a
you had the
shot.
meeting. I don't do the police department or the fire
Fire
department.
department.
budget.
Oh, I know that.
You asked to see them and asked them questions. They came in. They answered your question. I thought it was done. If there's more you want, you got to let me know so I can pass it on to them. Here we're saying we want them back in. For what purpose? You invited them in. They came in. They presented.
Why is it on the list? Why is it?
I don't. It's not my list.
I had a note on it simply because I wanted to confirm that we were okay with leaving this page as it is. That they've been in here, we're done. That's all I'm trying to get at, is that there is a consensus that this number can be presented to the membership. If everybody agrees with that, we move on. Okay.
Dave.
Syria.
Just fun.
There's an increase, but it's not.
About 21,000.
$22,000.
$22,000. And if they didn't come in with an increase, you'd think something wrong.
Okay, the next one I have listed was actually one of mine. I did list it. Under tab 13, Recreation and Parks, $140,000 worth of tennis court repair.
I can.
Yeah, help me out with
Yeah,
that.
you asked us to look into it.
I'm getting there. It's
Swim and Racket Club, we need to
It's on
do,
page 5 of tab 13. It's $140,000. It's replacement reserves. We're simply asking for some more. What are we talking?
This is the tennis courts we're talking about that.
Yeah.
Swim and Racket.
Swim and racket club. And I think, in fact, that's something that's worked for a long time. I'm wondering, I mean, the courts, last time I looked at it, pretty good shape.
Well, here's what the answer is. You asked me to break down the 140.
I did.
So the answer is we need to do something. We need to bring those courts, get them up to better condition. If we just resurface the courts, which is our first goal, it's about $10,000 each, or a total of $40,000. Unfortunately, they've been there for a very long time. When we spoke to one of the companies we use that do our courts, they need to take off that top layer, and until they do, they don't know what condition base layer is. They need to make any repairs to it. They're old, as you all know. So this is an all-in complete replacement cost if they have to dig everything out and start over with courts. I didn't know which it would be, and until they take the top surface off to see if they can bond to it, see if settlement changes, any of those things. We had to take worst case scenario to replace them in their entirety. So that's where the difference is. We looked at some courts we did a few years back, and at $10,000 a court for the top coating of the court, we can get away with that. It's just if the sub will hold it, and we don't know that work until we actually go deeper into it.
So this is really a worst case. Yes. Substantially less than.
Oh, it could be a third. Yeah, it could be a third of the cost. It could be 40 grand.
Well,
That's
let me
our
ask
hope.
you this, will we be able to get a better estimate for, before we actually make a decision, go ahead and do it? I mean, we're gonna make that decision, we're budgeting.
We would put it out for bid, and
Yeah.
we'd do an RFP, and then we'd have the companies bid on it, they'd come out and look at it, do the walkthrough, they'd make their analysis, and then come out and give us an estimate of what it would take to bring them up to speed, yes. And then the board has to make the decision and spend the money.
Yeah, I personally think that we should do that. I mean, I kind of love the idea that those courts even come up. And this is the only courts we have that, people can just come in and get that or full.
They're free in competition with our paid courts.
Well, you know what? They're not in competition with courts. And the reason they're not is because different people use them. Who have not really played tennis, kids, whatever. I think it's one free thing that we do. And they're a hazard right now. So, at any rate, I'm okay with this, but I do hope it's a lot.
You can be both.
We're okay? Yeah. The next thing on the list, I have it listed because we talked about it at the meeting this morning. It's basically the comment, it's the Macklin Creek.
Before we get off Rexon Park, I
Sure,
brought
I'm sorry.
something
Go right
up last week about these plastic water timbers put in playgrounds and then have to add this ADA ramps and stuff. There was discussion on that.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't know I was supposed to go get more wood. Did I not answer the question?
I know you had written it down, but what I was saying is you're putting in these plastic borders in two parks that are like 8 or 9 inches off the ground around playground. Kids are going to run back and forth. And I brought up that it may be a safety issue with them running and not looking and tripping over these things, breaking their arms and legs, whatever. And then in addition to that, we spend money because we're blocking off the access to playgrounds with these borders that now we have to spend money and put on these ADA ramps so people can get into. And my concern is, one, I think it's a safety issue, the borders themselves, and why are they needed? And now, because they're needed, now we have to buy more equipment to have other people have access to these parks. And that was my concern.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm afraid, why are we setting up this dangerous little fence around these parks where kids are running around? And then now we have to make them handicap accessible because of that.
And I thought we'd addressed it, but I'm sorry if we missed. What we're trying to do is prevent the mulch product that we currently use, from moving away from the equipment on a regular basis. In other words, more kids are around, and this mulch spreads out, which then you lose your fall capacity. So you have to have so much under the pieces of equipment in and around. And because we go through so much mulch in the year, what we're trying to do is keep it in a location where it's supposed to be, so the fall protection stays where it's supposed to be around the playground. Secondly, just because you have the mulch there, if you have high and low spots, it creates a challenge for handicap accessibility. So one of the things we looked at was doing this product where it keeps it in, and then just doing the ramps to allow handicap accessibility over the edges. It's no different than a kid running across the parking lot here up over the side. I mean, it's similar. They have to step up over it. This just keeps the fall protection in. If you recall, we did talk about looking at the rubber rock product.
You were going
we did. The rubber rock, or it's actually a Ruberock distributor we used before, that has changed hands. So we're looking at getting pricing for that. I just don't have it time for the budget right. They've got to come out and measure and do. It's 3 times, if you recall, 3 times the cost of what this is. We know that for the rubber rock.
But every year we're replacing.
We are.
Every year.
We are.
And this would last a lot longer.
Absolutely. Yeah. And with the change, there was. It may. And what we'll do is, I told you, when we go down the path of doing this with our playgrounds, and our first one we're going to have to look at is going to be the playground down at Maple Meadows, and that'll be something we talk about next, because we'd have to replace those uprights. I mean, we know that that's the next step. So, and our goal is to shift the playground over. So that may be the first place where we try to deploy this rubber rock type of material. Either that, or there's another brand competing out there now, same type of thing. So we're going to have to look at both of those. That's the way I want it. I just can't tell you definitively yet, till I get from the other manufacturer, how much time, how long what their warranty is, the life expectancy. I just don't have that information. We will look at that though. I mean, I actually think it's a great product. We looked at, I was up at Dover Air Force Base and looked at they have this type of product all around their equipment, and it's beautiful. And the head of maintenance said it has been just perfect. And it's almost like walking on marshmallows. It was the oddest thing, but kids don't get hurt when they fall. Yeah, it was really, really nice. Just terribly expensive. So we have to get the pricing and then do a comparative analysis with how much mulch we're replacing each year versus that, and see where that break even is. We just don't have that. But we will look at that. When we go to replace this, we'll look at that and bring that as an option, even if it is more expensive.
Yeah, please let us have that we finish the budget project, because I think that's, something that's really absolutely something we might want to consider instead of doing it every year. Okay, so we spend more, but then it's going to last all of us longer. And it's probably safer, and it eliminates Tom's concern about putting in these other.
Yeah, there's no edges that actually rolls off.
Right.
Into it's beautiful the ones that was.
Probably less maintenance too.
Yes, they just wash it off.
Well, tab G, not tab G.
That falls under.
That's under F. It's under tab 13.
All right, before the final budget approval in February, I will have this information to you on the cost.
Obviously, I put this list together last night. I didn't know what was going to be presented at the board meeting on May. So budgetarily, I think it's my take. You present on Saturday what's already in this budget, and we still got to decide what to do with that. Because until we know what the breakdown is, that's kind of that's my take on it. Other people, it's your take. This is tennis platform vehicle altogether. Is my me.
You're saying put it off until we get.
Well, I'm saying let Bob present what's in here, but at the same time, we've got to decide this is the budget. I don't want to end up with us doing nothing. I don't want that to be the solution here. That's my personal. That to be where we end up.
Well, that's back to Dave's point. This is not Bob's budget. We have to approve. So we've got figured later on.
We don't have to. I'm not sure where we are. We're going down Tom's list. But there are sort of things in between, like, if we're talking about recreation parks, you want to look at the capital expenditure.
He kept saying Mankell Creek. I got it confused too. That's why I kept saying G.
Well, Mankell Creek is part of recreation.
Yeah, it is.
I think
They didn't say it.
It's actually a different tab, but go ahead. Go ahead.
It's not.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's tennis platform vehicle are 3 separate tabs besides.
Well, you're right. Actually, recreation parks. I had questions about several of the capital expenditure items. First was the rec track program. $30,000 up in the budget last year. And that is part of it. Also goes back to the $250,000 that was to replace the phone. There's over $300,000. Those are two biggest in IT that's in this budget for this year. And I don't know why. I don't know. I know Bob said that phones don't work. They don't. I mean, I believe you 100%. But is there a plan? I mean, I haven't seen anything. I mean, this particular $30,000 program, I have a vague idea maybe of what it was, but maybe I don't need to, but I do need to know why $30,000 is in budget for it and what the alternatives are. I mean, I know this came out of part of what you explained, Bob, that all the department heads got together and said, well, here's what we need in the way of salt. But I've never seen a report on that or anything like that. So I just don't know. I don't know why we're spending all that money, or if we have to spend all that money. Now, it's budget money and it's replacing a reserve. I guess it's no information.
Well, no, I'm not sure what to change other than what I said last time. This is part of their registration program. This program, the Rec Track program, and the breakdown on it is in your book. So the expenditure with the different software, not comparing it to others. This was the one that we went down the path on. But as we said before, this will be used for all registrations, for all programming, to include all Rec and Parks program, to include aquatics, to include everything at Manklin Meadows, tennis, all the racket sports. It's an all-encompassing program to track all recreational activities. And that's what the program is. We looked at a number of programs. We actually were on a path with a different one, as I shared with you before. And we got down to two, this being one of them, and our Ocean City Recreation Parks happens to use this particular program. When a couple of folks from the team went over and sat with them, they liked the program, and they went through the pros and cons, and this was the one we came up with. It's the right solution to meet those needs.
And so this will just be used by the
and aquatics and tennis facilities. It's registration software, so we can track. If you remember, one of the initiatives that we want to start to do a better job at is tracking different users, who they are, where they're from, resident, non-resident. This program allows us to do that. It's for scheduling rooms, activities in the gym.
Yeah, I guess, and I think it's useful to be able to see what it does and what it provides. I didn't really get that out of this, but I'm not going to, I'm not going to dispute the fact it's been there for years.
We actually have money budgeted to take the first step with this year, and the second step next year, complete the project.
Yeah, well, it was in the budget last year, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think I have.
The year we're in now.
Yes,
this year.
Yeah, okay, budgeted this year. This year. Well, last year, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. As far as the capital expenditure, I'm looking at, nobody needs to go to this yet. I'm looking at the aquatics page. You say aquatics will be able to use this software as well.
Correct.
But that cost isn't allocated. I don't see them listed as a portion. I don't really care. I'm just trying to make sure. I don't care where it's charged out. I don't really care.
It's
all
that's
electric
right
parks, so everybody gets to use it. All right.
It's not really, doesn't.
No, I said I'm not making a big issue of that. I just want to make sure to confirm everybody gets to use this.
The other issue I had in Rex and Parks with Wi-Fi for the internet is I read the explanation for Wi-Fi for all the various trade groups and so forth.
It isn't just the trade groups. I have many of the organizations, David, that talk to me.
I hear it all the time.
Every time I see Grant Helby, he asks, where's the Wi-Fi? Organizations that come here cannot utilize the internet for presentations, whether they're selling something or simply having a meeting. It makes it, it's a piece of the community center that, in my opinion, is missing. In today's world, if you're going to have a center where people are going to meet and congregate, you better have an ability to get to the internet and stream live videos for people to see things. Otherwise, you're just not up to speed. So to me, this is something that is just a natural improvement to this particular facility. And I've had more than just a handful of people raise the issue saying, so it isn't just for the trade shows where they're trying to sell stuff. It's also for the groups of people. Sorry if I answered your question for you.
That's okay.
Kind of my background there.
I don't see in here lights.
Sure, we did not get
This was prepared.
Yeah, and we did not get the light pricing initially. When we started to discuss lights out there moving forward, it's a bigger issue for us. There are two things. We believe putting lights out there would be somewhere between 20 and 30,000, depending on the type of lights. We spent 150,000 on the ball field last year for the lights. A little different, obviously a different type, height. However, when you look at the skate park and the initial design of the park and the initial use of the park, it's actually managed by the recreation department. During daytime hours, recreation is fully staffed. During nighttime hours, they go down to one person. So when you're adding lights to another area that they're going to have to monitor and manage, there are other resources that we also need to consider when we're looking into that. Yes, ma'am?
Explain, manage.
Making sure the kids have their helmets and elbow pads and all safety equipment on the skate park. Make sure they're using the right type of they're not riding bikes on the skate park. During the day, we're fortunate because we have the whole building over there is full, so it's not just Rec and Parks having to look out the door. Here's our biggest monitor right here, the guy who always turns out back, and he's the first one to raise his mind, but he's our compliance officer when it comes to working with our insurance agent, so he's the best one to have. We all take a look out the back of the buildings out there, and if we see a violation, we'll correct it. All our resources go down to one person sitting in this building managing something on the other side. For those reasons, we kind of went, oof, it's more than just putting lights up for them. If we weren't put $30,000 in the budget for lights, I think that's going to be more than enough to cover it. Again, there are more issues than just lighting for that facility, especially at night. I looked into it. I mean, I took it serious. It's a rec managed facility.
Are there any insurance implications in lighting that place?
That would be our next step to make sure there's no dark spots that create a fall hazard.
Exactly.
Again, that you have to do a lumens test to figure out how much light you have to throw. Much like a pool. You have to have so much lighting capacity at the bottom of the pool so the lifeguard can see every part of it. We just didn't do that study. It wasn't something we had anticipated until a week ago. We just haven't had time to pull those resources. We just looked operational. We didn't even look at the life.
And any perceived pushback from the insurance company? We don't want to do it.
They're going to ask you about the lighting. They're going to ask you about how it's managed. I mean, that's the only reason I know that. I mean, they're going to have what's the access, who monitors.
They don't want to pay a claim.
They don't want to pay a claim. Correct.
No problem. Well, look at it.
It creates some additional challenges.
What I hear you saying is you're talking head count. You'd have to have somebody on staff.
No,
at night.
There are unintended consequences for putting lights up there that we also have to understand. We have manpower concerns, we have liability concerns that increase for night operations of the skate park.
As you know, I only raised the issue because a community member brought this to my attention. Obviously, I'm not a skateboarder.
Well, if we put it in, you're going to be.
He asked you why I didn't put the lights on.
Actually, I was going to add that to the notes.
Absolutely.
But I like to listen to what people have to say, and if it makes sense and it's not an expensive item. But obviously, there's more involved than I might have thought at first blush.
Me too.
I suspect it would be very popular.
It's right next to basketball. switch was lit already, and I'm thinking, well, just stick up another one there and point it in the other direction. You know, that's
I would
simplistic me thinking that's
Yeah.
all that was involved, but I understand this one.
Yeah, and the other thing is we can, if something.
You heard that, didn't you?
What?
I just made the comment, this has to do with the lawyers. She heard me say.
Nice. That's right. He's talking weasel. What do you always tell me? Weasel language or something.
No, I said that's
Really?
Oh yeah, learning the legalese from us.
Weasel language.
Yeah, trust me.
Really?
So
That's unkind of
Okay,
no. It's a given practice.
moving along to, now that we know there's more to lights than we ever wanted.
But now, with that being said, we didn't include it in the budget this year, but it's something we feel we want to move forward looking at. I'd ask the Rec and Parks Committee to look at it, as a project for next year. And then maybe next year we can put it in the budget.
I did ask the member who brought this to my attention to gather whatever information he had and bring it to Rexham Park. I think that.
If he did, I haven't seen.
I don't want to beat this to death, but $45,000 hard blacktopping of the wasn't that an issue last year? Didn't we go round and round about that? Wrecking Parks, $45,000.
The walk
Blacktop
path around
Southgate
South End.
Pond Trail.
Well, we talked about it the other day. We thought it was a good idea to leave in. It washes out every rain. We looked at putting a more permanent solution. One of the things we also talked about, much like the area around their park, is putting that rubber.
I'm just trying to recall. Wasn't this an issue last year in the last budget cycle? One in upwards of $100,000 and some odd, or is that something else I'm thinking of?
Not to my. I'm not going to tell you no, it wasn't, or yes, it was. I just don't.
I concur with Jack.
45.
We did talk about this a year ago.
Were we talking about going all the way around?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
I remember it the way Jack does, but you're only doing the one part.
What do you mean we're only doing one part time?
Let him answer that.
No, we received the breakdown of what's needed through our team. They went out and measured and said, here's what it will take to do it. Again, it will change. This was using blacktop.
Yes.
It will change. We're going to take a strong look at the rubberized material.
Right.
Berlin uses it's not rubberized, it's a different brand, but it's the same type of thing. We're going to look at all those as options. We just want to have money in the budget to make those repairs. Maybe a little less, maybe a little more. We just don't know yet.
But this is not the path around the total circumference of.
I don't recall how far it is.
Okay.
I don't recall what we put in this year. I know it's definitely around the Veterans Memorial and around that side. That side washes out the worst, and then down past the pool area coming towards the park, that washes out there. They'd be the two primary areas.
It just says Southgate Pond Trail.
Yeah, if we go all the way around, we would, but I'm not sure. With that money allocated, we probably could go all the way around with blacktop. We're not going to be able to with some of these other materials. But we have to look at longevity of the materials with the maintenance. Again, we're kind of learning about it.
Okay, moving on to H and aquatics, the board asked for an explanation of the $21,232 of food sales.
Yes, and when that question came up, if you recall, we said we thought we knew the answer, but we weren't going to answer it until we went back and double check.
Correct.
We were looking at two different documents. You're looking at budget and you're looking at the controller's report. Controller's report already nets out costs against it. Budget isn't done that way. The top half is the gross number. So you're looking at the 21 versus what was actually in the controller's report. On the controller's report, we've already netted out the costs. That's where that difference came.
It's the only note I had from aquatics. Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else? On to one of my favorites, golf. I'm going to save everybody the really long speech I could give, because you probably heard way too much from me the other day when it came to trying to understand this business case and the absolute total lack of answers that aligned with anything I was asking about coming from LU. With that being said, what we need to determine here is there are a couple issues beyond this $83,000, and I will talk 30 more seconds, and it simply says we've got to decide what number we want to set at the lower right-hand corner to be part of this budget. What they say they're going to do and what we want to put into our assessment does not have to be the same number. And I will shut up with that. Obviously, I'm not comfortable with any of the support documents that got us to 83. It never added up to me. I just got through watching that meeting again to watch and make sure I didn't miss an answer. I didn't miss a thing. And I'll leave it at that.
You're talking about our budget.
Yeah, I'll throw it open for discussion as to, and there's other issues having to do with golf as well. But to me, the 83 is just not a reasonable number to put forth as an expectation that it's really going to happen. With that, I'll shut up.
This is LU's budget.
Yes, it is.
And as I review their contract, we can reject it,
Yes,
but this is their budget.
yes, it is. The implication of that is, and I'm going to go back in history a year or two, we had a very spirited argument at board level as to whether we were going to accept a previous management company's budget for the year, or whether or not we believed they were going to reach that number. The argument, and it was actually, I believe, almost a 4-3 split at that point, that said this is their budget, they either live up to it or they don't. But this also has implication as to whether or not we end up at the end of the year, whether we look like we made money, lost money. There's other implications beyond this. This number affects what we, in essence, collect from our members in the assessment. This loss goes into that. If you lower it, the dues go down. If you raise it, the dues go up. But, again, you're talking about whether or not we believe this number makes sense.
Well, I guess that was my question. I wanted to understand let's assume scenario A. We accept it because it's their budget. That's what they brought to us, and contractually that's what they're supposed to do.
Correct.
So, as you say, they live or die by that number in terms of their performance, ultimately. So it's not clear to me exactly what the implication would be in accepting that and then how it affects the assessment versus what you think is realistic and then how that affects the assessment.
Well,
That's not clear to me.
It's scenario A is we accept this number. This is what goes into the budget mix as being the performance for that part of all the amenities. And it says that golf will lose $83,000. That goes into the mix. At the end of the day, the machine puts out an amount of money that's billed to our members. It's in there. At the end of the year, you end up either not making it or making it at that point. Those losses ultimately they don't get forgotten. They go into a column that says we're in deficit. It goes into the deficit column where we have to use some of the recovery money that we're paying. Paying.
But,
I'm just answering your question.
Well, you're not. That's why I want to stop you. Because I understand,
Right.
what happens when you lose money and how
Okay, you got the mechanics. Okay.
Right. What I'm asking is, assuming that we accept this, and I'll just say globally, the budget, this is based on a $22 increase in assessment. And so ultimately, it either they don't make the number and they're, way off, and we have to make up that in some way off of other entities that went into the budget. If we say we don't accept this, and you tell me what you think a realistic number is based on, I don't think you can use their business plan as a basis for coming up with a number. But anyway, what does that do to the assessment? Does that mean the assessment is $25 instead of $22? I mean, that's what I'm looking for.
Mechanics are if in option B, let's assume we put an option B that said, we actually believe golf is going to do better than this, that they're going to do $33,000 better. Well, then that $33,000 would be divided by 8,452, and it would become a reduction in the assessment. If we say they're going to do $133,000 more loss into the 110 range, round figures, then that would get divided and the dues would go up 22 to 25. But what that option C does, or option, and I don't think option B is even reasonable to say is an option, but option C basically says to our members, realistically, at the end of the day, this is really what we believe is going to happen in golf. We're not artificially holding your dues down while we're passing on this loss to be funneled through some other mechanism. That, again, you can take it exactly as it is and say, leave it as it is at 83, and which is what was done the last 4 years, basically, and not change it. Just accept it, that that's their budget and that they're supposed to live up to it, and mechanisms take care of it from there. You can do that.
Question of clarification, didn't Art Quest, he asked Art, as I remember, Nick Scott, basically asked whether you wanted to have the numbers recharacterized in our numbers, and you said yes. Did you ever get that? In other words, your sheet here shows, blank things under labor, and then it comes back under here under operating expenses. Weren't they supposed to recharacterize that back into labor? I mean, they're supposed to do it, make it look like our spreadsheet?
They've agreed they would do that.
Yes, but they haven't done it yet.
Well, what we do have, we went back, we have a much bigger spreadsheet that we could extrapolate information. Art's going to talk to his accounting counterpart on their side and ask if they can pull out pieces that go into this so we can match up. We will make sure that.
Getting back to the point, I don't know if I'm agreeing with Cheryl or not, but it's their budget. This is what they project. They got to live with it. They got to make it happen. I don't think it's their responsibility to manage the manager and tell them that, oh, you really can't make this budget, but we think you can make $120,000 loss. Just leave it alone. It is what it is.
A couple of things. I'm not disagreeing with this respect, Casper. There was at least one time I recall that we did bump up their budget. Their budget estimate. When I say bump up, I mean bump up loss.
The losses, right? Yes.
Okay. Give them more credit. And the second thing is, that happened 4 years in a row. So
basically did.
Yeah, so it's not a new thing.
What's the next thing?
Third thing is what happens when, you lose, say, let's say we lose $150,000. Yeah. And where does the money come from? What happens? Well, I think we had this thing called OPR fund recovery.
That's what I just talked about.
Which is, scheduled in for this year's to end up with $410,000. So we have this $410,000 here. And we put $16 of assessment dollars into this OPR recovery. Doing that since forever. And some years we need it, and some years we don't. We started out doing it years ago when we had a $500,000 deficit from previous operating years. So I can't get too excited about it from the budget.
Leave it at 83. I'm just raising the issue to me as far as I'm concerned. We got other things to talk about.
But if you want to give them some comfort room and you feel charitable,
that's what we did last year.
What's the next one on golf? What's it all about?
I hope
on the capital settle.
Well, that's the thing you were. Yeah, we asked for.
And afterwards, there are two ladies here that want to raise an issue, and they've been patiently sitting here going through this the knowledgeable process and entertaining diatribe. They would like to say something. They have a question.
The issue, Jack, that is the capital, we asked for a price out, a business case for the mower, or not mower, for I put the mowers in because one of our board members wanted that listed, and we also got the report back on the carts that we asked for, so I didn't add the carts, but the carts should have been here, sorry. So we have carts and mowers both to talk about, and we have, did everybody see the email that has the study that they did on the golf carts?
Yes.
Okay, hang on, where is this puppy? You have yours, right, Tom?
Jack, can you answer me to the two ladies answer what it is they want to talk about? Forget the way they want to talk about.
Can you defer that a second, Tom?
Of course.
Okay.
It's up to
These ladies.
Ladies, you say something. Jack is being an ultimate gentleman. Good.
Hi, I'm Andrew Martin, and I'm here to speak with the chiefs.
You speak up a little louder. Is that
louder?
Tilt it down.
Joe, would you check the mic, Joe? You're good.
You got to get right up close to it.
I'll go around.
It's the wrong guy.
He doesn't know anything about machinery. You know that.
We got an expert.
Just speak loud. Yeah, I'll just talk louder.
Come on up here. Come on up here. We don't fight.
I think the majority of residents were really happy when the board voted to use non-lethal control for the geese. But I really don't think all of the plan is implemented. I don't see any plastic wire on the lake to keep them from landing. I realize that you didn't mow close to the lake, but nothing was planted. And of course, maybe that helps in the summer, but in the winter, everything dies down. There's a community in Delaware that had the same problem, and they planted thorny bushes, which we really wouldn't have to do the whole lake at all. The main place that they eat and feed is west on 589 between, lake and the library. They love the library. So I think, that would help. You wouldn't want to do the whole lake anyway because domestic can't walk. They have to walk. So you've got to leave an opening for them. And secondly, Christiana Hospital in Delaware used herding dogs. And we use those in Columbia around one of the lakes to keep bees from coming up and visiting people in restaurants. And it works really well. I mean, it's not going to be one day, it's going to be consistent. But if the geese are constantly in water and can't eat, they're not going to stay. They're going to go somewhere where they can eat. So I really hope that you'll look at all aspects because euthanizing them is really inhumane, painful, torture, death. And they don't deserve that. So I really hope that you'll think about it. Try to get any information from Christiana or community in Delaware. I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. Ma'am, do you want to say something?
I was just coming with her to support her. But I'm a photographer in Ocean Pines, Lori Martin. And I will say that when I go up there to shoot photographs, I like that there's no fencing any longer, but whatever will help keep the geese here is great. But I know there's a lot of nature lovers in the area that would really hate to see anything bad happen.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
On with our program.
To my knowledge, there's nothing in this budget that I say.
Oh, all right. We were really okay.
Maybe a couple of board members, but that's all.
Thank you.
Just a couple of board members.
You wore my flak jacket.
Coaching.
Okay, we all got an email, at least I did, I'm assuming everybody got the email from, and it had a write-up, and you look at this, you want to take the lead on this discussion?
I'm actually, I'm I'm looking for help on this. I'm
Okay.
looking at scenario 1 and 4. We're trying to decipher all this information and hope somebody else has the information to offer.
Let me get it. I'm afraid that they were focused strictly on getting us carts when my focus should have been all summer of maintaining the carts that we have. We've asked for a month now, over a month, for maintenance logs, and they haven't been. 4 times we've asked, haven't gotten any yet. So apparently, and I can tell you, I could go out there and say, okay, cart 21, that rear left tire is going to be scraping. No maintenance done. Windshields are gone. Duct tape on them. They're not doing any maintenance. How can I justify giving them $300,000 worth of carts? Because that comes out of ours when maintenance comes out of their operating budget. The clubhouse is filthy. The carts are filthy. Maintain what we have, and then talk about $300,000. So that I'll leave that, because next I want to go into the mowers. So anybody else has any?
What about leasing them?
Well, so I was gonna
I mean, doesn't that save a heck of a lot of money?
Whatever, you still have to maintain them. If you're not going to maintain them,
I agree with you 100%.
So
Whose responsibility is to maintain them? The Rusty McClendon's group or John's group?
John's group.
John's group. And you haven't seen any maintenance over there at all? Do they squirt them down after they don't even squirt them down?
So do you recommend scenario 1 where we maintain what we have, put a maintenance program into that, and put in batteries so these things are not breaking down, replacing the windshields that are broken with duct tape and that type of thing?
Yes. Maintain what we have.
Maintain what we have.
Show me that you can maintain what we have before I'm willing to give you $300,000 to, like I said, that comes out of our pocket as opposed to maintenance that comes out of their pocket.
Seems like a reasonable.
Right.
So this scenario 1.
And I'm not even sure.
With you?
I'm
Scenario
sorry.
1 that they gave us is good?
Yeah, I mean, as long as they're going to do a maintenance program, they're going to do what they say,
Okay.
but
Before
I'm
we
not
buy
even
new, make sure
sure.
they do what they're supposed to.
I'm sorry?
Before we buy new, make sure they do what they're supposed to do. But we need to put some maintenance in. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I'm not even sure about I never had one broken down. I think I can only remember one time last year seeing anybody broken down, so I'm not sure the batteries are as gone as they say. I just don't know how they would know that. I can't remember a whole lot of times when carts were being brought back, as opposed to past years when the batteries weren't good, they were breaking down all the time.
So you were putting in the budget $75,000 for parts that we have now.
That's what it
Yeah.
This is what they're estimating it to be.
Yeah. I don't know where they're getting that estimate. I don't know if they're coming up with that. I mean, I would like to see a list, of what maintenance they're going to do for $75,000. What needs to be done?
Before we lock into anything on this one, my opinion at this point is I've heard that we have batteries that have been replaced. We have new seat covers that were put in by Baker. I've heard now for the 4th time we have asked for the schedule of maintenance for our carts. I think is before we do any kind of consensus, Tom, on my mind on this, is we basically put this one in Bob hates parking lot, but I'm going to put this one in the parking lot until we can actually get information from LU. Because Bill, I have the same assumption that you did when I read this. This was a how do I sell them on buying me carts?
It's an editorial comment.
Well, of course it is.
I don't.
But the bottom line is, my concern is this is the 4th time now that we've asked for maintenance schedule. Bob has asked for it. Now, in my opinion, we put this in a parking lot. We're not going to take action on this one, consensus-wise or not, until we understand what in the world they are doing.
Who did you ask, Bob? Directly, who do you ask for a maintenance schedule?
That's John.
John.
We asked for it at the budget meeting.
Well,
We did. We thought it was discussed with him at the budget meeting. So, my opinion, again, what's the consensus? Let this one sit until we get
I think we
information.
should I agree to let it sit, because I haven't read three alternatives thoroughly. I'm slow.
They're not easy to read, trust me.
But I would.
They're not easy to read.
No, I would say that.
This is what they're referring to.
Yeah, I have the coloring sheet. But I would say that the reports are how many years
Oh, they were purchased in '09.
old? 09.
Yes.
So 09. Okay. Now, do we have maintenance logs from any of those past years?
I'm sure they do.
Maybe not.
I mean, that they don't.
Again, this is.
How about a hamburger at McDonald's compared to a Ruth Chris?
No,
I ain't taking that bet. I ain't taking that bet.
And with remember, we bought the carts in '09. 3 years ago, we replaced all the cart batteries.
Yes.
And last year, we replaced all the seats, the seat covers.
Well, the seats got replaced for us.
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying they
Oh,
were
Yamaha.
Yeah, they were.
but they were replaced.
Yeah.
You're right.
I think, but port that makes the court go. Those are what they're talking about.
Can we get the mowers?
At any rate, we're gonna let this go, but I'll tell you right now that I'm in favor of accepting the recommendation. I mean,
Of what, $75,000?
Oh no, the last recommendation.
Oh, for number
The one
5.
that they made.
Which one is that?
Number 4.
Number 4, there's on 3.
Yeah, you got it on paper.
You're looking at what you're saying. Go with port.
Yeah.
What's for?
Scenario 4.
They do recommend for it.
Estimated $297,000 or
They did recommend
$59,430
them.
each per year, each of 5 years, not including routine maintenance.
I'm with them.
5 out of 10 carts, trade 75, own carts for 75 new,
Well,
and on and on.
I think it warrants a whole lot more discussion.
Bill, on the carts.
Yeah, let's go.
Mowers, excuse me.
We've been at this for 2.5 hours, guys.
Let's go.
I mean,
So
you know,
what? We're not even close.
the brain can only function as well as the bottom can
Hang in
tolerate
there, Bill.
life.
On to mowers.
Good, man.
My concern is that they were so concerned with trying to get us to get carts that we got some erroneous information on our mowers. During his presentation, he said that our mowers had 1,600 hours on them. Right, remember 1,600 hours, and that renditions had 4,800 and all that kind of stuff. Well, if you go on USGA website, number 10 here, and anybody wants this, I can send you the link to the website. Triplex mowers, typical life expectancy until major repairs are expected. Triplex mower, which we're talking about here, 3 to 5 years and 2,000 hours. Ours are 2005 mowers that have 2,400 hours on them. So they don't have 1,600 hours on them. They have 2,400 hours on them, which is well over USGA recommendation. What happened this year was all 3 axles split. So they called in a welder to do temporary maintenance on them to get them through the season. However, one, they had to completely cut brakes off of. Anyway, when the axles split, they split in different territories. When they had to weld them, one mower has 0 brakes on it, and the other 2 mowers only have brakes on one side. So these are mowers that are going around ponds, around people, around, out on the road and all that kind of stuff with no brakes on them. And, they're 2005 with 2,400 hours on them that, I was just worried that it was too big a push to get the carts and neglecting this. If we neglect the golf course, we won't have to worry about carts. You know, I mean, if we're not cutting the fairways with, properly, we won't have to worry about carts.
These are fairway mowers. I think you got to make that clear. Fairway. The thing that I just, it seems to me that we have a huge number of mowers in this organization. And I'm just wondering, can the mowers that we have in public works be utilized in the fairways? No way. Can't be used.
Something's going to give. So either we're going to mow the fairways, we're going to mow the parkway, or the ball fields. I mean, you can't have a mower in two places at one time.
No, that's very true.
The
That's
mower
very true.
settings are different for each application as well. So no.
Getting down to the numbers, you're talking about $160,000 that was listed by Bob on the not included in the budget page, which is under Capital 24, page 3. You gave some explanation of why that was left out, and I think it would be worth revisiting that at this point to say, why was that on the no-can-do list?
Well, let's start. First, it's not included in there because LU management didn't recommend it.
Okay.
I mean, I think, to Bill's point, I know what the USDA says. I know what the conditions of our mowers are, and I know the hours are. Scott said one thing, but I think Bill's numbers are accurate from my knowledge of where we are. I would replace the mowers, but that's me. The management company the board has selected did not request it. So I put the request from the superintendent in the back of the book because I couldn't support something if their management team didn't support.
And quite frankly, that's why I asked the question of Scott when he was sitting there. If you weren't asking for the if you weren't asking for the carts, would you have asked for the mowers? And then he hesitated, and then, well, maybe not, or something like that. So, like I said, I just think he was too focused on getting the carts, as opposed to the mowers.
From a budget standpoint, they really have nothing to do with each other. We're not trading off things like that. One's a lease arrangement. The other one's a straight out buy out of replacement service.
Well, so, no, sir. We buy carts. Our past is carts purchased, mowers purchased. The only leases for 10 of our current cart fleet.
Yes, I understand that.
Okay,
but on the other hand, I thought their last recommendation that their recommended solution.
Oh, you mean moving forward? Yes,
forward,
sir. But they're requesting a lease. Yes.
To lease. So they're two different things. Financials.
I think the issue, Dave, I think you get it down to it's not in the budget because LU didn't ask for it. And I'm hearing, I mean, I don't know everything here, but I'm hearing safety issue. I'm hearing you've done some research, Bill, on what we've got here. I'm listening to you. I just heard Bob say it was up to him. He put them in.
Well, if we have those kinds of questions, I think get that. I mean, I want to know. I mean, if Bill has information, and we say, look, here's the information. Now tell us. I mean, if they broke those carts or have no brakes, those mowers have no brakes.
Yeah, but here let's go a step further. Information was asked. They gave us an answer. We validated the answer was inaccurate. The Bill's correct with those 3 mowers. They need additional work. We're not going to deploy them this year without fixing those. Okay. To your point, Bill, I agree. There's brake issues. There's axle issues. We're going to just replace all. I've already talked to Rusty about it. He's not going to be on equipment that's unsafe to operate. So if they're not in the budget as a replacement item, and they're not, they're going to strip them down and put all new parts on. Now, the challenge you're going to have is it's going to buy you time, but all the other pieces of these mowers have already passed what the USGA recommendation is for the life on a mower. So we know we're going to have it. Scott and I had this talk, very specific. So it has been talked about in detail.
So you've discussed this with Scott?
Yes, sir.
Told him the probability was?
No, I did not. I told him that since it was not included in the budget per their request, that We don't want people on the unsafe equipment. They need to get this equipment fixed if the operators are going to be on it for this upcoming season. Well, that's going to hit us operationally. I don't care where it hits you. You have to fix them. So replace them or fix them. We don't want the new ones. Fine, you have to get them fixed.
Okay, can they be fixed?
Well, that's what we need to figure out all-in cost for the fix. We're looking at somewhere between 8 and 10 grand per mower just to fix the known problems. Once you get into it, there could potentially be more problems, but they don't know until they start taking everything apart. I will tell you, I went down and saw that one with the axle that broke. It was rusted. It was almost gone. There was so much rust that it just, they're older. And you know, it's wet a lot of times when they're mowing it. I mean, it gets a lot of use. So we made a decision last year to have a welder come in. Rusty included me in the decision. I went down and looked at it before they did anything. He said, look, we're stuck here. I said, well, what do we do? They welded. They had a welder come in that could weld the couplings on in a way that was safe to get through the season. Now we have to get into replacement of those items.
How many mowers are
3
total?
For the request, yes.
Well, how about the other? How many other mowers?
I don't, Pat. I'd have to do it. I don't have.
Well, I'm just saying, are they going to break down too?
Well, no. Everything has a life cycle. Everything has. I mean, there's a replacement strategy based on life cycle and condition of the element.
All the mowers at the same age?
No, these are all bought at these three. Yeah, they were all bought at the same time.
How old are they?
05.
Rusty's saying 7,000 per unit to bring them up to standard for the coming years.
Yes.
Three mowers. So about 21 grand to repair the brake.
Of the known deficiencies on the 2005 mower. I mean, that's what we're dealing with.
And the question is that 21,000 in their budget? Because his answer was they don't need to be replaced, right? Is it in here?
Yeah, and remember he kept talking about $1,000, and then I said, what's the total? And he said 32,000. So I don't know where he was getting that 32,000
for the repairs.
Yes,
unless he was estimating at 10 a mower for unforeseen elements, or you have an 05 mower that's been exceeds the hours of what the recommendation is.
I believe we need to go back to LU and ask them the question.
Yeah.
Is the 32,000 that he referenced in his answer in this page somewhere?
Right. Right. You got to go back to LU.
And then we've got to determine whether or not $32,000 being put into 3 mowers, how much longer does that help them live? Okay. Anything else on golf? Beach Club we handled this morning, I believe. Yacht Club, and the first thing up on tab 21, number L, is the food truck.
Well, I don't know if now's the time, or would it be on the capital expense to bring up to put some money into the country club. If we now on capital expense,
We would.
Ernie Stiles brought up a good point. He's looking just for tables that can be used with umbrellas to put outside. Now people, after they play, sit outside, enjoy a couple pitchers of beer, and have something to eat, and watch players coming up the 18th green. Those tables can be used at any time, whether it's a refurbished building or a brand new building in the future. And it may be a way to have people hang out at the grill and maybe bring in some revenue. And I don't really see anything in the budget at all for the country club, anything, and no improvements whatsoever. I'm wondering why, as far as we sat through with winter coats on, and the HVAC is not even working properly, and experienced it ourselves. But I don't see any money at all in the budget for this country club. And I think we need to do something to help support this new golf group that we brought in. Try to help them in some respect. There's nothing in here for the country club. But any money at all.
Were we going to talk about that separately under the cap?
That's what I just asked. Tom said
We
we
can
could talk
do
about
it
it
either time. Actually, it really doesn't. We can talk about it now. We can talk about it with the cap. all the capital tab frankly is a summary of all the capitals that are behind the tabs anyway. So this is as good a time as any to talk about what you want to do with studying the country club and deciding what.
Well, I've heard we already have a study.
Well, we do.
That's going to need to be
It's a few years old.
It's 2011.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to break it down in a couple of minutes. One thing you mentioned tables for a patio out there. I totally agree. My recommendation is to add five tables with 4 chairs each to our aquatics budget order. They're outdoor tables, the ones at the yacht club. They're nice bronze-looking tables. People like those. They'd be, in my opinion, perfect out there. And we'll get because we buy in quantity, we'll be able to get a.
Where would they go, Bob? Where would they go?
Outside the
Golf course?
Under the overhang. Under the overhang, you mean?
Out in that general area, they got a couple of spots picked where they'd like to have tables and chairs. So I mean, my recommendation is move forward with that. But when we do it, I can just put it on the order. We'll just increase the order that we're going to do when we order either marina or the. I can't remember which budget. It's either the marina area or aquatics. I think it's aquatics, but it's the same tables and chairs are out at the pool. They're nice. I mean, we've been pleased with them. Have a nice maroon umbrella, so we can just add to that order.
Is this new or is this replacement?
We have outside furniture, so I mean, that folks were not pleased with at the last meeting we were. So
We have outside furniture, so I guess it's.
As far as I'm concerned, I'm all for it.
It's
Let's
that
add it.
wicker stuff. It's old wicker stuff.
Let's add it.
Now.
So let me suggest something. This is an idea that's not just now, actually, a while ago. Ernie kind of triggered it, talked about getting some volunteers to modify the turn grill so that you had better visibility. LU had a tonight. What are their plans? Yeah, their business plan to knock down some trees outside, and basically, and I wondered if it were not feasible to budget a small amount of money, $25,000, $30,000, to basically, its purpose would be cosmetic changes to the country. In other words, things that could make it more usable.
More attractive. More attractive, more usable, more friendly. And get a committee of the golfers preferably, in conjunction with LU, of course, their manager, Bob, and see what can be done with money. It's sort of a not, it's not to exceed.
Just for a second, before we move to that, is there a consensus to go ahead and do the 5 tables and chairs?
Well, that's kind of that's part of the 30, right?
I'm thinking that rather than do that, if Bob says that right, yeah, to have the $30,000 and
all in,
and the tables will be much less than that.
Let's get something done. 10 years.
So so I don't know, what do people?
That's good. Gotcha. I agree. Now keep in mind, we're solving cosmetic concerns, which is fine. I mean, that's improving the guest experience, really with it. But we also have some mechanical concerns, structural and mechanical concerns that we also need to address.
Now, my point is that.
Okay, well, 30,000 we're going to be painting and this and that. I mean,
the engineering report needs to be updated.
We'll have to put it. I would say if we want to do something with the facility, we should do much like we did earlier. Put a number in there, and then we'll decide what we need up. We may not. We've had several in that building, so what we have to do is pull them out and see which ones will come for their current validity, or do we need to upgrade a couple of them? And maybe going back to the same engineer, can you upgrade this report? I just don't know yet. We'll lay them all on the table as we did before and just see where we are, and we'll be able to know from there. I mean, that's what we'd have to do. Start to analyze.
I think that we should put in some money to upgrade the engineering report and see what we need to do in the future to that building.
have a current engineering that we can get updated and have a ballpark figure of capital dollars we want to put there,
That's
what I would
the way I want to go.
do.
That's the way I want to.
Okay, that's
That's
what
what
I
I
like.
maybe I didn't explain it properly. Yes, I agree
So
with
let's develop what that number is.
Yeah, I've read those. It has recommendations in there for what to do, but they're broad recommendations. In a sense, they could be talking about 40 million or 500,000. And that's the issue. It's not just engineering. Once you start talking about fixing the engineering, there you're going to get a whole lot of other questions.
Well, I mean,
What's the use of the building?
we have to make a decision about place for rental, right?
Well, that's one of the decisions.
Yeah.
Build
But
new.
it's not the least of it.
Ultimately, we've got to go back to basically whether people love the process or not. It was open and there was a lot of information. When we started studying the yacht club versus the country club was first, the yacht club was second, then the yacht club became the one. We basically ended up doing both. We had at least 3 public meetings on the condition of these buildings, and then we had a meeting and decided the yacht club was first. And then we had more meetings and more discussions as to what place, repair, what do you do with it. I think you're going to have to go down the exact same path again with the country club to determine whether you repair what you've got. What I'm hearing, I agree with let's go do some cosmetics that make it better with what we've got. But as I said with the beach club, that can only carry you so far, which is why I supported rebuilding bathrooms. It can only take you so far. While you have gotten that far, you do the research that allows you to then make a decision. Do you repair what you've got? Do you tear down and rebuild exactly what you've got? Or do you build something else that might be smaller? I doubt it would be bigger, but something smaller. All of that takes money to put that together.
Don't we have, my question?
All we have, to
I
answer your
thought
question, all we
that.
have is the condition of the building and the cost to remodel the building. That's what's in there.
It's condition of the
Depends on what
various
size you want to
components.
replace it at.
Exactly.
I mean, the electricity, plumbing, roof.
Right.
All of that.
No way
My
that's
point is,
And my understanding,
Dave,
going back to your time, my understanding is that it offered options between tear down and build
That's what
and
I-
renovate. Is that correct?
They did. They discussed
okay,
that. That was discussed.
And that's what we're asking for. That's all we
That's what I'm saying.
want.
Bring that
Let's look at the
forward
old
so
study and
we can
move
look
on.
at it, See if we want to allocate some money in the budget for that.
Right.
And obviously, there's going to be some additional money we have to help us bring that up to.
Question is, Bob, what's that number?
Well, we put,
Cloud just went by, so
well, here's what we did. We put 75
Talk about
for
a
the
blind
police
side.
department. Well, we had 75 with the police department, but we don't have the length of the study. We have a lot of materials that have already been accomplished on the country club. So you probably don't need the same amount of money. So, I mean, Dave, you went through all the studies. They're maybe 35 or 40. And again, we don't have to
On the
spend.
country club?
It's a place, yeah, for updating studies. We already have
Oh, yeah,
studies.
money you're talking.
Yeah, so I'm thinking,
Probably.
maybe realistically, we take 25 or 30 and put it for cosmetic to get through this season, to make the improvements, furniture, paint, whatever it is. Talk to Ernie and his group because they had some pretty good ideas. And then put another 30 maybe, into 30 or 40, whatever you all think, into the ability to do the studies and update on reports of whatever we need to start down that path. Again, it's only giving us seed money to get started, and then we can start making the hard decisions of which path to get on.
There was also,
I like that.
it was also done at the same time, before the engineering, but when we were in 5-year planning, and focusing attention to the yacht club, and a programming study, which was basically look at a big yacht club, same size yacht club, actually not big, and a smaller golf-oriented country club or or a big country club and a hot dog stand for the yacht club. I mean, or not quite, but I'm saying.
you're right.
There was those four different options, okay? And that's when Jim Duke and I did like a
Duke
1
Stevens
week.
report.
Yeah.
Well,
But
let me just.
Country club that filed that fair.
We do.
You already had the draw.
That's right. We have information.
I guess the question is, can we have copies of those studies? Can we look at those studies and can we have some background knowledge instead of relying on what people remember?
Well, I don't remember it. I have a copy of it.
Yeah,
I'm not
on
going
the
to give it
board.
to you. I got it.
Wow, that'd be nice to
But
see.
to answer, all right, hang on. To answer your question, of course you can. Okay. Second part, having them without all the pieces together, what we just need to decide is put some money, and Shirley, you still have an open question, but I think the rest, put some money in there so we can get started. We'll figure it out from there. I mean, again, we don't have to spend it if it's in there because it's our replacement reserves, your replacement and renovation, or whatever we're going to do with the building. So just earmark some money so we have that, but then we go after it. Now, Shirley, you had a different perspective or different question. I want to make sure I answer.
We had something associated with the beach club that allowed us to say we should put $525,000 in the capital budget. I am understanding you to say we have comparable information on the country club that would permit us to do the same kind of thing. That's what I'm asking to do.
And that's my understanding.
I'll say
there is something available.
There is
That's what I was told.
if I may, there is something available, but it is not comparable in any way, shape, or form. You're talking about a beach club and bathrooms. Okay. You're talking about a country club with HVAC.
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm asking. I keep hearing you say there is something, though.
You're talking about all kinds of different components in the country club. They're not the same. I mean, one is much more.
You're looking at $5 million for the beach club. You're probably looking at 2 to 2.5 for the country.
That's what does that mean? 2.5
Replacement
million.
numbers?
What does that mean,
For
Bob?
replacement number. I'm giving you
Not
a
the
high
bathroom.
number.
Tear down, replace.
All right, I'll say it again, just so I'm clear. $500,000 for the beach club bathroom. Doing the comparison of the two. For the beach club.
Not
You said $500,000.
$500,000. Sorry. Woo!
You said $5 million. It's a
The other way,
what?
I'm just giving comparisons without having the document from me. Probably 2.5 million replacement of the country. Just to give you the numbers we're
You
talking.
said $3 million 5 years ago.
Again, depending on the size of the facility. So we're looking at that's the number disparity.
Okay, that's placement.
Yes, ma'am.
What about renovation?
I
What's
don't
that
have a
number?
renovation number.
I thought it was.
I don't-
I was told
I
it
don't
was
know.
1.3 million. That's what I was told, and they said the difference. That's what I was told. I hear that number a lot. That was the number I heard on the renovation at Yacht Club. 1.3.
You're right. You're right.
Thank you.
Sure,
Sure, 1.2 to 1.3.
The only reason I can't choose, I don't
Cheryl.
I understand, but
Okay.
I thought what Dave initiated, unbeknownst to us, as it turned out, did provide that kind of information. Isn't that correct?
Well, unbeknownst to you, because you all weren't around.
Oh, jeez.
Jim Duke's in Florida.
So it does exist.
We do have information, but there's a considerable amount of work that's going to be required to take that information to the place where we can make any kind of decision or get a really good estimate. I mean, that has to be revised completely. It's too old.
We can take the approach, and we've been through this like 3 times now today. We can take through the approach of putting in an amount of money, which is $3 million, whatever number you want to put in there, and not know whether that's the real number or not. Or you can put engineering dollars, which is basically what I think we agreed to do as a board, unless we add real cognitive valuable pieces of information, which we had with the estimate on bathrooms, which allowed us to put a number in there. I'm in concert with Dave. Those reports on that country club, be it repair, remodel, replace, whatever, are of an age now where they need to be updated before we use those as a basis for anything. I mean, in my opinion.
I'm not disagreeing that they have to be updated, and that's why we agreed to put some money in to bring them up to today.
We actually haven't done that yet, but okay.
Well, I think that's what we were all saying.
Okay.
But we do have some kind of a ballpark estimate on which to come up with a number to start with to build into the capital for the country club. It exists. It may not be current, and we have to spend money to bring it up to what we today, but we have some number to begin with. I'm just trying to find out where that is.
Let me put it this way. At a philosophical level, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't look at our reserve number and say none of that's allocated. It's all there for us to spend. I know there's somewhere between $2 million and $3 million expense coming for the country club, and we don't want to wait 5 years for it to happen. So we're not in disagreement with each other. Do we have consensus for the $30,000 for cosmetic and $50,000 for the bringing the studies up to speed? Do we have consensus?
It's 50
Those are
total.
two issues.
No, it was 50.
Yeah.
Is it total? Is it total? Or
Total
is
was 50.
Well, remember I said
Part. Okay, if we're going to put a big number in, I'd rather have the study number be part of that. That would be, you know, if you're going to put $2.5 million in, the study is going to be part of that number.
I didn't say
two different numbers.
No, 2.5.
I didn't say 2.5.
Okay, let's. I made a suggestion, modest suggestion. I thought, pay $25,000 or $30,000. But that be able to, well, we're still making up our mind about all this, as we have been since 2011, to do cosmetic repairs. You know, and basically it'll sort of be golfer driven. I mean, they know, there are members of the council there that know construction, know what you could do for a little money, and basically working with Bob and LU, do that. $30,000, okay? If you're going to then go back and update the engineering study, that would cost, I would say, I would put at least another $50,000.
That's what I said. That's what I said.
And that's a reasonable guess.
What's the cost of replacing the HVAC? We have that number.
125.
1.5 million?
Guys,
125,000.
125,000. Well, while you're talking about Band-Aid fixes, does it make sense to do that?
You know what I'm hearing from.
Help me out. What did we just jump to?
Excuse me, Tom.
I need to know what we're talking about.
Excuse me, Tom.
I asked about the cost of HVAC.
Cheryl, if you go over to the course and walk around the course, you will see certain shabby areas. You know, like they have these landscaping ties. They're all rotted out, so it looks shabby. There are weeds growing in certain gardens and things of that nature. There are trees that probably should be removed. There are some cosmetic things that you can do on that golf course.
Minor things like that.
Beg pardon?
You're just talking about minor things like that.
That's what I assume he's talking about.
No, not at all. The clubhouse, Jeff. Talking about at a golf meeting the other day, Bernie made a suggestion that if we just did this, we'll work on it, get a bunch of people to work on it, so it'll make it look a lot better. LU in their business plan mentioned a few small things that the tables are kind of fit all into that thing. These are just things that will make the country club look a lot better for not very much money, and it doesn't fix any of the big problems that still stay there. Okay. The engineering study would then address the big problems in depth, look at what we have fixed, or either fix, renovate, or replace. That's the tough problem.
Well, let me ask you this, Dave. If we spend $30,000 to do that,
yeah,
and within 365 days after we finish the engineering study, and we're in this budgetary process next year, a new board's in this budgetary process next year, and they decided to renovate that building. Forget tearing it down, or they decide to tear it down. Doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Renovate or tear it down. It's $30,000 that we flushed. I mean,
no. The original proposal was tables, chairs, umbrellas. Spending money on that.
No, he's talking about inside. He's talking about inside.
About a not to exceed.
I thought you were talking about the yacht club food.
That's right.
Oh, you're waiting for that.
You went backwards.
No,
He just wants to expand a little
I'm-
bit on that.
I am saying, look, I mean, I was here in 1911.
1911.
2000, I was there.
I just figured that.
He was here with.
I was, okay, I mean, I know that things do take a little longer than you think they're going to take, and it was a lot longer, I think, in this case. So I believe that in the meantime, we can make the place look a little better, get help with golfers, some of the ones that are more,
I think the horse is
respected
dead.
building.
We've already, I don't mean to, I'm trying to get moving here.
Yeah, go ahead.
The bottom line is we have consensus on $30,000 for the cosmetic updates, and we have a $50,000 figure for updating the research up to. Don't spend it if you don't have to. I'm hearing it's consensus. We move on. From that, we're going to get a bigger number as to what the options might be. Very similar to what we're doing. The police program, we're doing exactly the same thing there. We're putting some money in to figure out what the big ticket number is.
I agree. I don't think we should have a bigger number. The reason why is because you're going to laugh when I say this. I don't trust them. You give them a lot of money, they might sneak out and buy some cards or something else.
Well, this is,
I'm saying if we give them a check,
no, I don't think this is going to help you. This will be through the association.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave said.
All right.
Right.
Okay.
Tom, continue to run the meeting.
Yeah, I'm moving. Yeah, exactly. I'm moving on to a food cart. I want to talk about food.
food cart.
Food cart.
Food bag.
I should tell you that when I had a meeting here yesterday of the Kiwanis Club, well, man, they were against it. Reason being is that they go to do the Thursday evening things that they have in the summertime with their hot dog stand. They do. They ban it. They think it's going to interfere with their hot dog stand. I'm just telling you what they said. I tried to assure them that we didn't think that was going to happen. However, the consensus that I hear is that most people are against it. Somebody thinks it's a trifle expense, it's too much money.
Well, of course they do. This is Ocean Pines. Well, of all, really, all, that's nice. All due respect to the Kiwanis, but we have to worry about Ocean Pines and our finances here. Okay, they do wonderful things with their charity and all that kind of stuff. But if that's the only reason that we're not going to try to raise revenue to cover some losses in other amenities, then that's, sorry. This thing has so many more uses that, if they're worried about not selling, 20 hot dogs, and we're going to make a decision on Kiwanis not selling 20 hot dogs, sorry, that just, what's that?
I've got a few emails. Yes, ma'am.
The people that I have talked to about this, if they start off with being opposed to it, it is based on, I have found, a lack of information in terms of exactly what our intentions are on how to use this. And when you explain to them, for example, when you go for the wonderful free nights that we provide, movies, concerts at White Horse Park, unless you lug along your own food, drinks, whatever, there is no option there to purchase any food or beverage. Additionally, at the, excuse me?
He says it's the cost stopped them. They said they did.
They did.
Art goes every week to Cheryl's Point. They're not
I
out
haven't seen them there.
Recreation used to.
Additionally, at the Mumford Landing Pool, which are families that go there,
I think it's a great.
there is nothing available there to purchase except ice cream. Well, I love ice cream, but I think it's probably not the healthiest choice for people or for families and children. And so again, unless you lug your own stuff there, you have no option. So if the food truck were available there some hours a day, that would be another option for people to purchase food. We have other events in the park, in the community. where this food truck could be utilized. And so when I explain all of those kinds of things to people, they go, oh, wow, I never thought about that. Yeah, that's great. I don't see this as a revenue maker. I see it as another way to provide an enhancement, some enjoyment, an option to people in the community. We're not talking about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars here. I mean, you just ticked off 80 grand for an engineering study and some, putting lipstick on a pig at the country club. This is $55,000. If it breaks even, it's great. I mean, I think it's ridiculous to be a hot dog truck. Well, we're not selling hot dogs out there. It's going to have a variety of choices for people. That's ridiculous.
I don't disagree. I'm just telling you what the cost.
Well, the individuals that I've talked to, and Cheryl knows some of the people I've talked to, do not take that point of view. To them, it is a point of priority. I mean, is this really something that we as an association should be focused upon? And one of the common denominators as far as the pushback is concerned is, well, do we really want to be in competition with other restaurateurs or other individuals who may be selling food at a particular event? In one instance, I talked to some people and they said, and I said, one of the things that came up was the St. Patty's Day Parade. There's a lot of people at the St. Patty's Day Parade. We got a wonderful parking lot over there. We could pull that truck over there. They said, yeah, but it's across the street from Dumsers. Why do you want to go into competition with Dumsers? I said, well, I never, right. I never thought of that. Maybe that's not the function that we want to do. It primarily what I'm hearing from the folks is it's just not a major priority right now. And it's something that it just takes our eye off the ball, and it's something that we should not be focusing on at this particular point in time. I have just heard over the last hour a lengthy discussion about series of studies that we could put together and get some legitimate information to make a serious commitment in renovating a major amenity in this community. We need Bob's focus on that 100%, as well as the many other myriad jobs that he does. The last thing that he needs is an additional responsibility is the management of a food truck. And hey, stuff happens. You know that. Stuff does happen. And good chance that you're going to be dragged into something that you're going to have to rectify. I don't know what it would be. I have no clue.
Right.
I'm finished. Yeah, okay. I'm done.
That's right.
Yep.
First, I don't have any intention to be the driver operator.
Of course not. Of course not. But you have management responsibility.
I understood. I'm just saying.
Art, you are the driver. All right. All right, Artie.
And I'm also thinking you're all jumping in the weekend. You just haven't seen the schedule yet. So you each get to operate. Jack, you're going to have a big crowd.
Oh, yeah, right.
So, no, but let's, and I hear all the views opposing and not opposing. Here's what I'll tell you. It's unfortunate that the media outlets have put it out there saying hot dog truck and put it out there with the spin without putting the additional information that was included in here that more accurately depicts the use of the vehicle. Okay? Not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just saying the reason we're getting an immediate initial negative, and I've had to deal with several, pardon the French, what's this damn hot dog truck? That's what the primary objective. I was in the lobby for an hour with somebody. We started there and went other things in the budget where only snippets of information, which is typical around here, get put out there for sensationalism. When we actually sat and talked about it, we opened the budget and I showed him the uses. I showed him the menu. He says, well, it's not just hot dogs. Right. He said, that's not the Weenie Mobile. Right. So again, I think we need to be careful what we're hearing from the initial response from social media outlets, papers, whatever it is, that put out their snapshots to generate sensationalism. Once people start to look at it, then we'll have a more reasoned response of good, bad, or indifferent. So I don't think it's fair to automatically judge by the initial response when most of the outpour of information has been sensationalized in these snippets of information. We'll get some good feedback, I think, after Saturday's meeting, because I'll put it up on the board. We'll talk. I mean, that's part of putting the budget out there, and we'll talk about it. And then we'll be able to hear, after giving factual information and not sensational information, factual, and hopefully then our membership can talk to you guys, and we can decide, finalize it in or out. I absolutely believe this will work. I believe that our amenities, Mumford's Pool is the ideal place during the week for this means of service there. We've been looking for 2 years of how to do it. We looked at golf cart from the club. We looked at putting an extra micro system in, and then ordering once every hour. Someone drives over in the cart to deliver the food from the club. All those things became we could do it, but this ended up being our selection to accomplish those. Yes.
This is a question.
Yeah.
My understanding is when you first presented this concept, that one of the reasons that you initiated this concept was because we had an outdoor table which serviced people in the patio area for food. And I think there was a grill or something of that nature. Yeah, it was really cool. A lot of people liked it.
Yes.
Now, my understanding is that there's a problem with that because of county regulations or something of that nature.
That is
so
correct.
Therefore, you are substituting a food truck for that particular function. No?
That was one of the that was one of the pieces that drove us to get to this final determination. One.
Correct. Now there's no special licensing that we can apply for to put that table out there.
According to the county, there's not unless we do major modifications out there. Sink, 3-compartment sink, ventilation. And there's a host of requirements.
Sorry. I understand. No, I know what you're faced with. I got it.
So this was what was that? Yeah.
County regs change every year.
County regs change. You can't be all things to all people. And as we evolve and learn, areas that'll work, areas we need to make improvements on. We believe this is a way to meet the needs. And I understand the Kiwanis concern. I've heard it. I've heard directly from a couple of them. But this serves a much broader audience of people for much more than just one area. If it was a one and done type of thing, we'd have to really kind of put our arms around. This actually serves a multitude of potential patrons throughout different venues that we offer, concerts in the park, to the Monday night movie night out here that we do now, to 4th of July, Big Truck Day. I mean, all these type of things give us the opportunity to move us around. And one of the bigger ones for me is the Mumford Sanding Pool. This would absolutely be able to serve those needs from that 11-2 time frame. So,
well, I think also. Oh, you're first. Go ahead.
Please do.
I was just going to add the old yacht club had to be torn down, but the new yacht club has drawn such a greater number of people. Weekend bands, the whole patio is filled.
It's true.
And it's hard to get service there because we have it's been great. Love it. Everybody loves it. This would be another avenue to service some of the people too, that you don't have to be waiting for people, waitresses to come in and go inside and get something for you as well. So
that's a good point.
It's another great because we've got such great turnout now. There.
Yeah, that's right, and I agree with that. And I'll remind you that those people really want to get bar service. They're looking for that beer, or that mixed drink, or that drink with an umbrella in it, and they can't get it because of the way the daggone thing's set up. And I don't know that you can serve alcohol from this.
No, but if you remember, we have a service bar in our budget. Okay. What we're doing in lieu of building a separate service bar, because if you recall last year we monopolized the marina building, the back half. It's set up for the bar.
I know, I'm familiar.
All right, so we didn't have everything run there last year. We're running those now, and in lieu of spending $25,000 for the outside under the steps, we're able to do it much cheaper and use that for the service bar this upcoming season. It's the service bar that needs to really, if a guest is sitting there trying to get a drink and you've got two waitresses or waiters with servers waiting to get service drinks for tables, it creates just to your point, bad service.
Yeah, I'll give
we
it a
need
shot.
to get this, and we all agree, the new, the separate service bar. We will have that rectified by this season, and I think that's going to relieve the pressure so people, the guests coming up to the bar can get served quick.
I'll bet you that lunch with Dave Stevens at McDonald's, that this time next year we're going to be talking about expanding one of these bars.
Do you go with him to lunch or me?
No, you and I and Dave,
I don't take it. Then.
We go together.
No, I'm out. You win.
No.
I'm a revenue guy. I want revenue. I see revenue coming out of this to make up for, we're talking, okay, we're losing $500,000 in Rex and Parks. Okay, well, let's make some of this up. The Budget and Finance Committee, some of them are still there from me. They're big revenue people, and I didn't hear anybody say a complaint about this. They were all over this because they're revenue people. They see that we can make revenue. Making revenue helps us in other areas that we're falling behind. I don't care about dumpsters. I care about Ocean Pines and the money that we can make with Ocean Pines. I mean, all these weekends, two Corvette weekends, two classic car weekends, both sides of that street is filled. So people aren't going over the dumpsters. They're sitting over there, and I never got the whole thing about them sitting there for the whole weekend. But they sit there in those chairs for the whole weekend and just look crazy to me. But that's, you put something out there, they're going to walk to it. They might not go over, stand in line at dumpsters and all that. This is revenue that helps us in other areas.
Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves now. We don't know if we can get the permitting to do that over there in Ocean City. I heard it's very difficult in Ocean City to get a permit for anything like that.
Right.
Well, so you're going ahead saying it's a revenue maker. Our track records don't really make revenue on selling food here. So what?
What did you? I'm sorry. I want to make sure I understood what was just said. We don't make money selling food.
Is it a profit? Is it a profit?
The yacht club is right now. It's first year we've been profitable. Yeah. So far. That's what I said. So far. Yes. It's our best year. And
food only.
Well, that's drink.
Food only.
A lot of drink there. A lot of drink there.
Food and drink or food only?
A lot of drink there. I think profit in the out pretty much. A lot of it.
It's a restaurant. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just talking about food out of a food truck. I'm just talking about food out of a food truck. Okay. I think getting ahead of ourselves, thinking that we're going to park this thing in Ocean City for all these Corvette weeks and all this stuff. We don't have the information yet. I'm a little leery about pushing forward until we get more information on it. I'm just a little bit leery. I want to know, can we get the permitting? What does it entail? How much is the truck actually? I want to see the invoice, how much the truck is going to cost, what equipment's being in there, and how much are we going to spend?
That's all on top of what we're doing here, all the events here. So just forget Ocean City. That's all on top of what we're doing here. How many events, the whole list of events that, we're looking at here.
All I'm saying is I think we should look at it a little bit carefully before we jump into it. Before new venues.
All right, let's move.
Mr. Stevens.
I've been waiting patiently.
Please.
That's what I said.
My basic problem is not enough information. I've looked at the revenue and sales projections here, and I think they're, to say the least, extremely optimistic. I mean, they'll be accurate if you add another week to monthly school and keep it open another week, and don't have any rain at all during the period of time that these things would be operating. I'm pretty sure if we wouldn't get those revenues. I think these are inflated, and I think the costs are similarly not all addressed. The licenses, permits, insurance, appreciation, maintenance on the truck. And lastly, but not leastly, $55,000. Is that for a new truck, a used truck? Have you got actual prices from anybody? I'm just making these comments. I don't feel comfortable at all with this. And I'm not saying take it out. You hear what they say on Saturday.
Yeah, that's be good.
But I'm going to ask these questions after they say what they think.
Okay. Food truck stays in for Saturday.
Yep.
And if Bob comes out alive.
It was great. It's my budget.
No, I
It-
mean,
it's
it's-
staying in
it
anyway.
is.
Bob,
Right.
It's Bob.
All right. Hey, we're sneaking that.
I'll bet you a lunch.
Awnings
at McDonald's. If you'll
Forget all
follow
this
these
lunch
people.
stuff.
Where are we?
We're gonna bed
Where are
McDonald's,
we?
forget it. Awnings for tiki bar, separation petitions.
That's, you've got.
What have I got?
Yeah, well, here. No, we need to break it up.
I wrote it late.
I got it. I got it. I can answer.
These are the Roman people.
That's right.
What about mozzarella sticks and fried fish basket?
Please answer this so I can get out of the embarrassment of misspelling the word.
Okay, all right. Awnings, okay. We looked at what the awnings at the beach club cost us a couple of years ago based on the size and shape. You know how they fold out and in? They were 28 grand. So just throwing a number, we're going to be in the mid-20s if you want awnings all the way around that tiki bar. Now, my recommendation, if that's a concern, is we get the little thing of sunscreen, and it'd be like $10, and we can put sunscreen on it. It's a tiki bar. I'm not being smart, but I mean, we looked at it.
I know you're not being smart. You see the look I'm giving you.
I know, like I was being smart. I wasn't trying to be smart, but it's an outdoor tiki bar. If you don't go to cover up,
rather.
well, okay.
Well, if you, and I'm sure you do remember, when we were designing this tiki had been put together, we actually wanted a bigger overhang, weren't allowed to do it.
Well,
So we can do the awnings.
The retractable awnings we should be able to. Yeah, I haven't called the county to check code on awnings, but it's not permanent. It ends up not being a permanent fixture extruded. It's something that comes out during bad weather and back in. So, you know, you're going to be mid-20s for retractable awnings.
I mean, so we did an overhang, but because we couldn't do
No,
it with the county, this is a very good alternative. Isn't that what you're saying, Mr. Terry? That we didn't, it was designed with an overhang?
Was initially bigger, was the other side of this thing is we asked for a price, we got it. Okay. So the Roman separations. What are those costs?
Are we in, out, and different? Do we have an idea on that?
I'm in on it.
Sure. What do you say? In? Jack?
I don't care. I'm hungry.
He's abstaining.
Jackson, I don't
It's
care.
5:25. 5:25.
We'll go for that. Dave?
Awnings, was we talking about?
That's what we're talking.
Sure. Yeah, it is.
Wow, I got to
Just
ask.
say yes. Say yes.
If people buy more.
That's right. All right. We just added 25.
Set them on.
We just added 25 for awnings. I'm assuming this is not replacement reserve, so it goes direct to the bottom line of the assessment.
Yeah.
Make sure you understand that.
Maybe.
Could it not be part of the building
Could be as far as I'm concerned.
from an accounting standpoint? I mean, it's
All right, 25 replacement reserve. Move on.
What are
You're
separation
upgrading the
patricians? Is that people that wear colonial
That's
hats?
exactly this.
It's what we're going to have if I don't hurry up and get through this.
Roman
So-
togas.
Okay. I'm going to give you just some quick. One of the things we talked about at the yacht club, and I disagree with the assessment, but we recognize there's some improvements we can make. I'm going to pass these down to the first one, first floor, the first floor section when you come in. We're talking about getting partitions to separate that into 3 smaller areas. It's not really going to completely block them off. It's just putting partitions up to give some separation. Put the potted plant, just give more intimacy instead of the big long open area. It'll also create the bar area. We can have the one to the furthest on the left side when you're walking in with the high tops and just leave them there. So it all the bar technically gives a little more expansive. A lot of people seem to like those high tops. This was, and I'm going to pass this around, it's a 3 partition. We don't have to go quite this big, but it's a 3 partition divider that you can put. I'm going to pass it so everybody can see it. Let me go this way first. And this was at a restaurant in Annapolis, and it actually, a member pointed this restaurant out to me. But it actually looked great. if you took them down, it was going to be a big open building like ours is. Those actually added a real nice feature. These were the other partitions, same thing, but they had solid. They had solid at the top panel. What I would do is take a solid panel in the center one, and the glass panels on the outside. So you still see the flow, but it gives you some separation. You can have more, less. We can break it down a little.
Explain this.
Oh,
Bob,
yeah.
this looks like a
Jack,
wall.
which one do you have?
This looks like a wall.
Yes,
That
it
is a
serves
wall
as a wall. It's a partition wall. No, so you can see.
So wait a minute. I'm asking the question, not you. Okay. So is this a collapsible?
No,
So it's permanent.
They were fixed.
It's
before,
permanent.
yeah.
Okay.
So, and what what it's not intended to do is separate. It's not intended to give 3 rooms. What it's intended to give is more intimate areas. They look nice, and
This with the windows in it, this is movable.
that is not movable. They were mounted. They were mounted. Which Jerry and I actually sat and looked at Jerry, the yacht club manager, and I looked at that.
So these really are partitions. They're like, I mean, you're literally turning the first floor into sections, right?
Sections.
Yeah.
This is mounted.
So you're gonna have a larger bar section. In other words, they'll come through that large
Yes.
opening
Yep.
into the high tops,
Yep.
where the little entryway is to go back behind that wall to the bathroom.
Yeah, you got it.
All right.
But remember, we're not recommending a whole bunch. There are like 2 of these in. All it's going to do is keep it from being from here to there open. It'll just 2 breaks in that room. That's all. About 8 feet.
They go about 8 feet. They go all the way up to the ceiling.
No, not all the way to the ceiling. It's actually the airflow. It doesn't impact airflow. Part of the reason you don't separate completely is you're going to impact the airflow in the building. So by having these that go up as just, they could be 6, 7, 8 feet. 8 is kind of the number because we'd have to go out and look at it. Correct. Well, what I'd recommend, the 3 partition, I'd put one of those in the middle of it so you have glass, and something like that feature in the center. It was a extremely good looking facility, and it separated it, and it was still big enough, but it gave the intimacy that our folks have been asking.
This is the same as that, except some.
That was solid on top. So
Okay,
you think
but
of the
it's
bottom
the
like
same
this,
thing.
solid on top. I would do the 2. I'd do a solid in the middle or something like that with the glass so you still have that open. You just need to create sections in the restaurant.
I sort of like all glass because it's getting light. I don't know. Whatever.
No, understand. It was an idea, Jack. Yes, sir.
I think it's a great idea.
This is for the first floor.
Yes.
Explain to me the thought process of the concept of making that. I understand the bar area makes
Yes. Yeah.
eminent sense to me.
Yes.
Why are we breaking up the dining area into 2 separate locations with these dividers? So we got the bar area and 2
no,
separate
good question.
restaurant locations. Are we going to lease up one of them to McDonald's or Wendy's or something
I'm
like that?
actually thinking about Starbucks in the one area.
That'll work. We're leasing it though.
No,
We're leasing it.
No, the intent. The complaint that we've had over and over is cafeteria. Okay, so all we're trying to do is put some elements that are relatively simple, but they look very, very nice.
Well, conceptualize it for me. You've
Yes.
got all of these sliding glass doors.
Yes.
At one end, you've got this big entry with a wide entry area that goes past the kitchen going into the.
Yes.
I can
Right, when you come
conceptualize
to-
the divider for the bar. Now, the others.
Yeah, well, there will probably only be one more in there. There'll be 2 total.
Oh, okay.
Not
I thought
3.
3. I thought
No, we're looking. No, they're 3 part. They're 3 part. 1 wall, 2 wall, 3 wall. But there's only going to be 2 of them. All we're doing is breaking up the long room effect.
Okay.
That's it.
Breaks up the visual.
That's all it does.
Okay.
You mean
I
it
got
makes it look more like a yacht club?
Yes.
Well, I'm not going to say the member that gave me guidance to go look at this isn't here because he may be. But he highly encouraged me to go look at that, and we did.
Well,
And
you know, the Annapolis Yacht Club burned down.
This wasn't in this was the boathouse in Annapolis. It was actually neat. I mean, it was a relatively inexpensive approach to fix the feel of a long open room. We can build, I mean, these are partitions. We can actually build this. We talked about doing rolling ones or movable ones. The challenge with that is just the sheer size of these. I just worry, I mean, unfortunately, we have unique population where we have people that fall, people lean on. I'd rather fix them and not worry about for downstairs. And if I could ask, I saw Mr. Nepper raise his hand. May I ask him to comment?
Yes, I'm the one who made the suggestion. We had been down to...
Never mind, it's out.
Bob, you blew it.
Sorry.
You blew it, man.
We'd gone down to the boathouse, and it struck me when I was there that it had some of the aspects of the yacht club. It was part of its long, narrow, and it was decorated in the 90s. It's got more knickknacks than even my wife, and I wasn't suggesting that, but just asked Bob to go down and take a look because I thought there were elements of that would be helpful, and so apparently that's true.
Yeah, I agree.
It is very nice facility. Physically, now they have nice menus, but it is a very nice facility, and it looked to me like it could help out with ideas.
And it really, we believe we can put this together relatively quickly if you guys agree. You know, that's something we'll move forward with. You know, budgets. We've got somewhere between 8 and 12 grand. We're trying to get the window costs. That's the only thing. We don't need a thermal paint window. We don't need, no, it's just a window. We're just trying to get the cost of what a basic window with paints in. That's the only thing. The frame out stuff, our guys know how to work. So.
Okay.
Or you're adding to the building, right? You're improving the building.
Well,
that's right.
Improving the building.
Yep, he's right.
Why isn't improving the building okay?
Because it's replacement.
Building improvements can go under either. We've traditionally treated it as replacement because you're enhancing the facility, but we upgrading the facility to ours.
Well, and that's still to be discussed. Long discussion too. If you don't want to do it now, set up another.
So, well, my question is this: you'll put that one next, but do you want me to move forward with this?
Yes.
All right. All right. Now,
I've heard people say they one complaint they have not the food, it's the long room. They don't like it.
Well, this will give some intimacy, and Jeff was right. When I went and looked, it really was beautiful, and I think that's going to be an economic. So that was the partitions. We also did some pricing for some sound. We were asked for some sound. I don't like these as much from. Maybe I don't have a picture. Second floor. I don't have it with me. I know the cost. It was about $5,000 to put partitions. They're the hanging one. We talked about these when we first built the building. If we needed to, we'd go to them. They're basically suspended from the ceiling. Think of it's not this, so don't say this is it. But think of a big piece of styrofoam, the size of this table, maybe a little shorter, hanging from their baffles. But what you do in big buildings, they have these, and all they do is absorb sound. I mean, they deflect and absorb, so you're not getting it bouncing off. It's about $5,000 to put a variety of those in the facility over there. They hang down where they're detachable, so you're able to unhook them and move them if you were having a wedding where they're having the drapery and those type of things. But it would knock the sound down, which is something I was asked to look at.
Have you gone in the building where that's happened? Those baffles are there?
We don't have, no, they're not in there.
No, I mean, someplace else, like in Atlas.
Yeah, that's where they use, there are other, this comes out of areas that halls that are rented out. They use this type of.
Okay, so it does work.
It's supposed to. We haven't put them up in our, anything that's going to absorb the sound. We have hardwood floors, solid walls, and ceiling. This is a way to do it. I didn't like the ones we had pulled up. I'm sorry I don't have a picture of them. But about $5,000 you can get them to put some in.
But this is something hanging as opposed to mounted.
This is something hanging. You can buy them either way, though. The problem with the mounted, the hanging appears to be a slightly better solution. They're easier to get to take down when we have for a wedding or event. I talked to the guys over there. How many? You've seen the drapery that runs out there during the events. That's a separate upsell for an event or wedding. That would then be in the way if you had these baffles hanging. So we have to find something that's relatively removable when we have other event, a wedding in particular.
But how do you get up there and take it down if you don't have a scissor?
I knew when I said it.
How did I know he was going to do it?
You'll go up there.
There you go.
No, I said
So again, these are all things we have to figure out.
Do you think they're attractive?
No, the ones we initially identified were not. But I know there's some others out there. I've seen them. They're panels. You get them with fabric. You get them with, we just have to get something that looks good with that facility.
Yeah, right.
It concerns me a little. But I recognize why there's a concern with the issue of sound.
I'm going to recommend that we close, and because the reserves thing could be here till the bars.
There's one more item on the, I don't see it listed, talked about decorations. First, similar to, we had Christmas, how attractive that was.
We had talked about that. Thought I told you.
We did talk about it.
No,
it's a resolution.
It's not only here, but I thought we had talked about somewhere between 10 and 12 grand to do everything. But the knickknacks, the stuff you got to buy, so we don't have to go buy that. So we would need that in the budget. Well,
Your birthday, of course.
if you look at this, and to Jeff Knepper's point, I mean, they have the fish, they have all this stuff. It's obviously up there all the time. Then you decorate for Christmas or whatever is in addition to this. But to do decorations, this is the year we told everybody we would get to the decorations.
Yes, I want there.
Jerry and I spoke about it. Talked a little bit with Brian, our events plan. So we're looking between $10,000 and $12,000 to decorate the facility. Get the permanent decoration.
Hire somebody professional.
I thought you would do it and would save the money.
I think you should.
I have excellent taste, but I think maybe somebody would prefer a professional. Is that inclusive with the guy that we did use for the Christmas decorations? I thought Jerry told me that guy would be.
We've had people that have offered to help us that are interior decorators for decorating the facility. We staged the facility a couple of times where interior decorators came. We staged stuff, rented it basically. So yeah.
I actually have artwork, storage.
Again,
we all donate a painting.
Let's put 12 there in. I hear faces doing this.
Oh, wait, no. Two quick things. Take about 5 minutes. Am I correct? 425. I'm in the reserve. $425,000. We moved it over to. It says historic reserve here, but it's replacement reserve. Is that correct?
We're not doing reserves yet.
Huh?
We're not doing reserves tonight.
I know. It's just a quick question.
Okay.
Did we do that? When our last meeting?
Capital.
Moved it from the legacy to the historic.
No, Rich, we haven't moved.
Bridge work, yeah.
We haven't moved that yet.
We haven't done that.
We haven't done that yet?
We haven't had that discussion.
Okay. And that discussion will take place.
Illinois. Ask him.
Well, and the other one I have too, real quick, $250,000 for computer and phone system. And I'm curious as to where that number came from. Did we have a consultant come in, take a look, make recommendations?
Jack, you said these are simple questions. These are not simple. When I have reserves, I'll have all that. I was told we're not doing that. So, yes, I have bids for certain work, but we just compiled it to come up with a budgetary number, as we've done with everything. I don't have specifics from a specific company because we're not there yet.
I did question that earlier.
I know you did.
And, Mr. President?
Okay.
I'm willing. I have some comments on the reserves, which I won't give. And I've written them down, but they were mixed with a lot of other. So I'll extract them and I'll send them out because you're basically my thoughts on it. And perhaps we can discuss them
Please.
the next time we.
Our next meeting is at 9 o'clock here, is that correct, Saturday?
Well, it's not our
It's
meeting.
not our meeting. We don't have to be here.
Bob's got to
We
give
choose
out
to be
his
here.
budget.
Wow, you keep,
Well, we're loading
remember
up on
that
the
when I
budget.
give it.
Well-
Remember that when I give
Well,
it.
wait a minute. Do you want us here, Bob? Do you want us here?
Art will tell you, Bob, that your predecessor.
However, we do
first
need to
time
come
I
up with
saw
a
him,
date.
got up and gave his budget.
You're going away
Proposed a $150 increase.
Yes, that's
Oh, I remember that.
the 6th or the 30th.
I got a quick question, if you don't mind.
No.
How much of the
The 6th is my wife's birthday, and I.
5-year plan, say $150, how much of that?
Away, then I'll be away there, Tom will be away.
How much?
130.
130.
130.
Plus 16 for.
All of it. All of it.
Right now.
Are we
Right
looking at
now.
our calendars for a new meeting or
But
not?
that's
What are we doing?
something
Closing?
next.
Are we adjourning?
Thank you.
No, let's come up with a date.
Alright.
We gotta, it's done.
Yes, yes, you gotta.
When are you leaving?
Pat, why don't you send these people home?
One of us is there.
Yeah. Like a motion to adjourn or something?
We're coming up with a date for the next.
Oh, the next meeting.
Bill? Bill?
Oh, yeah.
I've got the 5th here.
Yeah, we had Palmer
Board of
Gillis on the
Directors
5th.
budget meeting. The 5th.
No, that's Palmer Gillis. Tom won't be here.
Palmer Gillis, yeah.
I don't know. It came out of the.
Tom is suggesting tomorrow.
Well, I have a 1 o'clock manicure that I'm not.
Well, I have a dentist appointment at 12:30, so. Do you want to try to do this tomorrow?
I've got to get my hair shampooed.
What about after the Saturday event? Because then we'll have more information about what the people talked about.
Could do that. We can do that. Want to do it Saturday after? You won't be here. He won't be here Saturday.
What's the?
How about the Monday following?
He's gone.
Tom's gone.
The 1st.
I'm
He's
gone.
gone.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
No, I'm going.
We can work that out.
Cheryl's going home.
Are you going too?
In a big hurry.
I'm going to. I'm in the way.
Well, the second or third.
You don't want to do it Saturday after?
Your mind will be blown.
It's
No,
all
we
not
gotta listen
already.
to all that stuff.
Are you back here before?
I'll be here.
Why
I'll be here.
Cheryl, are you back before on Thursday?
No.
When is?
Let's do it Saturday.
Saturday or not.
Yeah, let's do it Saturday. It's done.
Which night was tomorrow?
Can't do it Saturday? You're not here Saturday?
Which night was
This Saturday morning.
No. Yeah, what about, I'm not here Saturday.
Sure, tomorrow morning?
Tomorrow, I'm good tomorrow morning.
In the morning. Well, we'll be out.
9 o'clock. 9 o'clock.
I will not be here.
Yeah, done.
You can't be here tomorrow? No, I thought you could be here.
No.
Okay.
Not unless I-
Or we just approve it as is.
Okay.
Okay. No,
The
I
general manager.
I'll tell you what,
Saturday.
let me just slip in this one slight amendment to you. And, put that in there, and then we're good to go. We're all good to go. I've got it printed out right here. I can show you.
Is that the Scouse art?
Oh.
He gave me one, so I'm thinking that's it.
Pat, with some logistics here. You're not here, you're not available next week at all.
Basically,
I am not available.
What about next, February 1st?
I'm not
week,
available
what do you-
Monday through Thursday. I am obviously available Friday because we have to meet with.
What if we did it after that?
That's
Is
okay.
your- I can do that. I can do that. I'll be here for that.
Mr. Gillis.
Do it after the Palmer Gillis meeting.
Say that again.
Why? Do it after the meeting with Palmer Gillis next round.
Okay. As long as, because I'm
He's gonna offer us a couple
I'm gonna
of
go all the way to here about 6 o'clock.
That's what I had.
We're done by 12.
It's not, that was already discussed.
Palmer Gillis is at 9 o'clock.
Are we all in agreement?
Ten.
If we're done with Palmer, we go into reserve.
Well, can we move him up to 9?
I can try, yeah.
Well,
If you can move him to 9, that would be great.
say, why don't we start first? And then we say we have to be over by 10 because his meeting starts at 10.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
Cheryl, good try, Cheryl. Good try.
We'll start at
Thanks for
9
that
and then we'll
shot.
pick it up afterwards.
All right.
Well, when is Palmer,
Is it
10
okay
o'clock?
with you if he does the
10 o'clock,
meeting?
but he can move it up to 9. Yeah, move it up to 9, and then we'll go. Yes.
Okay. All right. So, all right. That's what I can do in the morning.
There are a group of residents who want to be present for that meeting. So has this been put out there to the public? Or should I just call this lady? Right?
You call the lay, but can you wait till tomorrow so I can confirm he can do it at 9 instead of 10?
Just let me know.
I'd hate to start at 10.
Is that? Is it a meeting we haven't heard about yet?
Probably. It's top secret.
You have a Dakota ring with
Only
you?
if you have a need to
You got
know.
Hillary's email?
Hey, Bob, Bob, one question.
Yes, sir.
Call for the adjournment.
No, I'm in the middle of questioning the general manager.
Yes, sir.
We've had a few things added.
It should be the first thing you want.
Okay. Can we see the impact of those up and downs like tomorrow?
That would be That would be real nice, but I doubt it.
No?
I doubt it.
So you're not going to present any of those things? I mean, you're not going to show any budget impact. So, I mean,
If it gets finished by Saturday morning, I will present ones you all have voted on making firm changes. Just don't know if it'll be done in time. If it's not done in time, then I've got to go with what I have.
okay. So, I guess it doesn't matter. We're not doing the reserves until then. I just want to see budget impact. I mean, assessment impact. Where it is. I mean,
No, understood. Just don't know that we're going to have time because you got to calculate
It's just a
depreciation.
question.
Yeah, no, but
Question.
it's a depreciation. I mean, the other things that impact.
art is real fast. I mean,
Yeah, but art has other responsibilities.
always.
Can I call for the adjournment?
Now you can do it, Pat.
Okay. Call for the adjournment. All those in favor say aye.
Bye. Bye.
1 point of order.
I want to make sure